Hello, 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 people. We are live and litty in the city of Philly, and my name is Brittany Rue. Welcome back to another dumpster fire of internet hell. Today, in our True Trans Trojan Horse series, where we expose the hypocrisy of true scum trans medicalists that make no sense and that have been wholly embraced by the gender critical crowd, we have our latest Marcus Dib. Marcus, welcome. Marcus is a trans identified female who had her uterus and ovaries removed, had her breasts amputated, and shoots testosterone. Now, Marcus is quick to let everybody know that there are some people who get to be trans and some who don't. And I have tried to sort of piece together what exactly the criteria is, according to Marcus, about what makes a true trans and what makes a transgender, as he and Blair White and Buck Angel and Arielle Scarcella and all the other true trans cool kids like to say. But alas, I still have no fucking idea how she is any different than any other of the so-called true transgenders that they like to dunk on from TikTok. Seems like now there's a whole new subgenre that has emerged after we were so inundated with queer theory nonsense that was jammed down our throat, led by the lovely Dylan Mulvaney, who is like the ultimate grifter extraordinaire, who has made it up to, I think, 8, 9, 10 million followers. I don't know. He gets like another million followers every month and a half on TikTok, and is now making buco bucks selling this ridiculous clown costume of a man in drag. And we're all supposed to say that this is a woman. So, from the fiery depths of hell came up a whole new crowd of trans people after the left was so fully, captured by trans. And this is why I think this is all very socially engineered. And let me explain quickly before we get into the content. I think what happened was, okay, out of nowhere, artificially, we became very inundated with this academic queer theory a la Judith Butler et al., where there was, and we know this now because there are lawsuits that have gone after Joe Biden and his cabinet. Joe Biden, I guess around 2020, went and started basically demanding that big tech companies implement a sort of a speech code. And now they're actually being sued for this. And anybody who was online around that time knows that you could not say anything. The landscape has actually changed dramatically ever since Elon Musk acquired Twitter. That's what sort of broke up a lot of the really hardcore speech hold. But there was a time where, you could not misgender somebody. You would have, be banned for life off of all of the major media platforms. And it just it came out of nowhere. I feel like starting in 2015, 2016, we just had this sort of international tsunami of pro-trans activism that was so abrupt and so widespread across, between academia, corporate America, the government, schools, the internet. You have Reddit bros. You couldn't, before, where it was areas that were supposed to be like bastions of free speech. Suddenly it was like the one group that was off limits were trans. And the narrative went like this, right? That there's a small group of people who are transgender. It used to be transsexual, now it's transgender, and they are at such severe risk of violence that there is a virtual genocide going on, that they are so astronomically at risk that they catapulted to the very top of the what is it called, of the victim hierarchy, right? When we're talking about the victimhood Special Olympics, they catapulted straight to the top. And it's not just, oh, hold on, give me a second here. We're gonna watch my food is ready. Since everyone hates me eating, I'm gonna eat anyway. Hold on for 1 second. Let me just pull this out. And in the meantime, you guys can watch. I haven't seen this one, but we'll see if it makes any sense. And then I'll finish what I was saying.
Let's be real. Life can get tough to say the least. Without someone to talk to. And as men, this topic seems to be brushed off when it doesn't need to be that way. And so that is why I recommend.
As you all know, life is unfair. When it comes to trans people, there are certain things that we cannot do. What I'm referring to here is, of course, that trans women cannot give birth. Or can they?
Uterine transplants make childbirth possible for trans women. The first attempt ever made for a trans woman was in 1931, Lily Elb. The surgery was unsuccessful and she died of cardiac arrest 3 months later. Her body rejected the transplanted uterus. She was 48 years old.
That is true, and she was Danish, just like me. And Lily's story is so tragic.
The donor has to be histologically close enough to the recipient for it not to be rejected. So similar tissues, perhaps from a family member. To the hundreds of people offering to donate their uteruses, you have to be a close enough match to the recipient. Then if the donor parts are kept, the recipient may need to be on immunosuppressants for life, which is dangerous and could shorten life expectancy over time.
Imagine being a woman going through all of that just because some biological men refuse to accept that no matter how many surgeries they'll get, they will always be biological men, and they will never know what it's like to be biological women.
If the uterus that is transplanted holds someone else's egg cells, then it won't be genetically the trans woman's even if she carries it. It would be the donor's.
Exactly, and I think that biological fact exposes the intentions behind trans women wanting to get the surgery. This surgery has nothing to do with alleviating gender dysphoria in biological men. As you just said, a trans woman will risk a woman's life, another person's life, due to the surgery. Gender dysphoria is of course uncontrollable and a very strong feeling, but to actually want to get the surgery, like, don't you care about others? When it comes to biological men who want to get the surgery, they want to be validated as real women. They think that the only difference between them and biological women is that they don't have a uterus. I know, it's a very delusional way to think. It's 100% impossible for a biological man to be the mother of their child, like the real mother of their child. Any rational transsexual woman would be like, I ain't gonna do this because another person's life is at risk. I would still not be the biological mother of the children. Maybe I would...
She's Danish. She's from Denmark. She currently lives in Denmark. Sounds reasonable, right, guys? Sounds like, hey, wow, she's really based, bro. Alright, so anyway, as I was saying, really quick in a nutshell, I think what happened originally is they started off with this, like, first they shut down all free speech, right? So that they could artificially, and it was like the perfect time to do it. This all seemed to kind of coincide with the lockdowns, right? So we had this pandemic, which was, I mean, I think such a scandal, and there's so much shady stuff going on, and whatever. And I think that was, you know, so that they could sort of like socially engineer a bunch of stuff, shut down, Joe Biden, who has all these shady relationships with China. TikTok came out. So it's like TikTok came out. All of a sudden the pandemic hit. All of a sudden we have Joe Biden elected to the presidency, and Joe Biden, who has all these shady relationships with China. There's just all this weird shit going on. Goes around and basically enforces a speech code wherein nobody is allowed to talk against this group of people. Transgender, trans identifying people. And it's like out of nowhere, you know, everybody sort of always vaguely knew that, like, you know, transgender people, but transsexuals existed, but there was this like really tiny pocket, and they usually stayed, but usually like men who just, you know, had these like sexual paraphilias, and you just kind of like stayed away from it. But then all of a sudden it became this like huge social contagion factor where now it's like kids wanted to do it, and we're talking about trans children, and then we have the rise of Jazz Jennings, and nobody's allowed to speak out against this. And it was just, they talk about it was like, you know, the civil rights movement of our time, civil rights issue of our time. And that the situation, we were told the situation was so dire that trans people were at such risk, and especially the trans women, right? Because again, you know, we know that women are actually at a real risk of male violence against women. And so now we're talking about, you know, a group of men who we're classifying as women, so we can sort of, it's like they can kind of, you know, again, piggyback on, you know, a lot of the sort of anti-violence against women movements, and you're using like language is so powerful. So when you're saying trans women are at such a risk, for a lot of people, that already makes sense with what they understand about the world, because you're hearing the word a woman are at risk of violence from men. And we know that that's already a huge epidemic. And when you're calling these men women, it's like you're able to sort of activate that protective response from the public, because they're kind of interpreting that as, oh, well, there's a group of women who are especially vulnerable. The fact of the matter is that these are men. And so, of course, now, men, these trans-identified men became like the most important consideration, and nobody could speak out against it, right? The left and academia, it was like a race to the bottom to see who could act like they were the most woke, and who could virtue signal the most and act like they were the most, the biggest champion of trans rights. And now people were actually like becoming trans. It wasn't enough to just say, hey, I've got trans friends and I advocate for trans identifying people and da 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 da. It was like now they actually had to become trans. And one way that a lot of people could actually, like these heterosexuals who really had no place in the LGBTQ acronym at all, could, get their way in, is by adding on the Q, the queer. So queer is really like heterosexuals with extra steps, typically like a septum piercing, like green hair, blue hair, whatever. And change their name to Kai because they're all named Kai. And so for a while, no one could speak out against it. And it became, I feel like predictably, and I don't know if this was like part of how it was engineered. This is all very engineering. They try to tell you that this is a grassroots thing. It's absolutely not grassroots. It's not grassroots when you have somebody like Dylan Mulvaney, right, who gets on TikTok and from like day one starts to astronomically ascend straight to the top, is getting millions of followers. He's getting countless corporate deals. He's being invited to the White House to speak to Joe Biden. And they're making these drastic changes. They changed the definition of a woman within the dictionary to now, the thing is, they were insidious about it and sneaky. The definition of a woman is still the same. It's an adult human female. But if you look up the definition for female, the definition of female is now either a biological, a woman with, I guess, somebody who's developed around large gametes, or somebody who identifies as a female, right? So that's how they were able to change the definition of a woman while keeping it under the radar. They changed the definition of a female, which appears in the definition of a woman as adult human female. So they locked it down so much to the point where people were getting so tired, were so heavily censored. This like a few year period where it was such an assault, and there was such an artificial forcing down our throat and rebranding and sort of tailoring society around, this whole trans issue, that then all of a sudden it created this like vacuum of space where then people stood up. They created Rumble, which is the alternative to YouTube. So it was conservative content creators or non-woke content creators could then go to Rumble and have their own space. So they built Rumble. They built Getter, which was the alternative to Twitter before Elon Musk came and came like Moses and freed the people of the land. And then, what else did we have? We had there was like a scramble to create these alternative platforms, right? And then you have like the Daily Wire that created, Benjamin, whatever the fuck his name is, came in, created the Daily Wire, and they did a great job of creating their own sort of like response to the mainstream media, like the traditional old school media outlets. And once then there was this sort of like, pushback. Then and after it was like queer theory had been so ubiquitously implemented and non-democratically so. It's like if you go and you look at all of our major, our educational systems from, kindergarten all the way through to higher education, even like, our doctoral programs, our universities, our medical associations, everything had gone, and after everything had changed, all the policies had changed about you have to respect people's pronouns. Now, in New York City, you can get fined. A business can be heavily fined and penalized if somebody who works at that business I think like repeatedly misgenders or dead names somebody. And after all of these sort of social changes and policies had taken place and actually, like the policies themselves had changed. Hold on, there's an alarm going off. Hold on. My bad. After all of that had been done, and then after Elon Musk acquired Twitter, it was like they had to start scaling stuff back. And it was the same time, it wasn't just the trans stuff, but if you guys remember the like narrative around Donald Trump, it was like, it's just crazy that all of a sudden, like everybody agrees, everybody, like, all of the mainstream media was all going hard after Donald Trump. There wasn't a lot of balance in reporting. And it was like, they were showing Joe Biden as this like knight in shining armor who was going to save us from like the evil fascist dictator that is Donald Trump. And then Black Lives Matter, it was like those riots where we're burning down literally like Black communities, which makes no sense. Is being heralded as like an act of heroism, but then people during like the January 9th stuff, are getting like life sentences in prison and whatnot. And so then it's like after a few years of being under such like a dictatorship, and such like a repression of free speech, I think that this really does need to be studied for years to come, how we in America, and especially in the West, America, and really like everywhere, but I'm an American, so that's what I'm most, like familiar with. We're going to look back at this time as being a time when, like the First Amendment was fully arrested, right? And it's interesting because you also look at, for example, during the lockdowns, that was actually one of the first times in history that we saw them like basically legally pull these maneuvers where they actually suspended the Constitution of the United States of America. I don't know if you guys know this, but Rule 600, and it is a constitutionally protected right to a speedy trial during the criminal, criminal proceedings and criminal justice system in the United States. Do you know that during COVID-19, they indefinitely suspended something that is called Rule 600, which is where if you're being charged with a crime, you have the right to be tried within a reasonable time frame. That way, so it's like not like you can just be sitting, because they detain you, right? Especially if you're not eligible for paying bail or whatever the hell the case may be. They detain you. That way you can't be detained for years and years and years and years without any kind of a conviction, right? Did you know that during COVID-19, they suspended Rule 600 so that people who were in prison had to wait indefinitely until however this pandemic was going to pan out? Do you know that to this day, they still have a lot of like pandemic rules being implemented that were implemented during COVID-19? So I say all this to say some really scary things happened. We'd never seen that in the history of the United States, right? Something like that. So they basically showed us that the American Constitution could be suspended. And what scares me the most is that because they were able to tweak things like the algorithm and tweak, go around and tweak what was, able to be said through big tech and whatnot, they actually convinced people that this was in their best interest. They managed to convince the American people that volunteering to arrest and suspend the Constitution, and please remember, the Constitution is the highest level of protection we have against government abuses. The Constitution of the United States of America is not about enforcing rules on the American people. It's about protecting us from governmental tyranny. Okay? And so the fact that they are actually successfully able to manage to convince us to agree to suspending what is the most critical protection that we have against governmental tyranny tells us a lot. We need to study this period of time, like deeply and do whatever we can to uncover what really was going on during the pandemic and all this sort of stuff. So I say all this to say, we went through a period where we were artificially pumped with all these different like woke stuff, right? It was like the pro-BLM, the hardcore anti-Trump. I used to hate Trump too, right? And I used to be, what really made me a liberal was I started to get really uncomfortable with how one-sided the reporting against Donald Trump was, and I hated him. But I was like, I'm just starting to notice how petty the mainstream media was and how they were like, come to his things, and he would sit there and take it. It's like, Joe Biden, you can't ask him anything off script. You know that like reporters are given like questions that they're allowed to ask, and he only answers what he wants to answer and he leaves, you know, or they whatever, the Jean Pierre, whoever his media secretary. You know, but Donald Trump would come out himself and literally field all of these like questions and stand in the middle of the hot seat. And it was like the questions were so like petty, and they would over focus on like things that he had tweeted about and things that really didn't feel important. And then I also knew some good things that he was doing. Like he had the most significant criminal justice. And this isn't about, I don't want to get into politics and which presidents we like. And I respect that some people, whatever the case may be, right? And I'm not like endorsing anybody, but it just made me feel really uncomfortable that he was being touted as being this like hardcore racist. And whereas from what I knew, Joe Biden grew up in my area. I went to school with his niece, who was like best friends with Hunter Biden. Okay. I like grew up around these people. Joe Biden was the author and the proud author of the 1994 crime bill, which is, really credited with being the sort of catalyst for mass incarceration of Black Americans, in the U.S. And I mean, he's responsible for the disparity in crack sentencing laws and so many other things that really were like the precursor for the Black Lives Matter riot. So it's just crazy to me that we have a man who basically like created the sort of catalyst that led to a lot of like, these disparities in criminal justice and whatever, for Black people. But then he's the one who's going to come and save us. Same thing with Kamala Harris and all of the abuses that she did, with sentencing people for marijuana crimes, and how her office basically tried to go against the Supreme Court of California, who was saying that the prisons were overcrowded and they needed to reduce it. And she sent like her lawyers basically saying that they can't release these low-level offenders because they rely on those low-level offenders for labor, for wildfire labor. And it's like, bro, what? And she's evil, these evil people, and they're the ones that are going to save us from like whatever the case may be. That's what started to make, and then President Trump, and this is during the time when we're so obsessed with, Black rights and Black Lives Matter and all this shit. And I'm like, well, why aren't they reporting on the fact that President Trump just signed the first major piece of criminal justice reform in modern presidential history, where he removed a bunch of these mandatory minimum sentences that remove the right of judicial using their own judgment, to sentence. And then, these people have these like hardcore minimum sentences, even if there's like these mitigating factors that would have otherwise, caused somebody to use their judgment to like lower what their sentence would be, and a whole bunch of other things. And it's like, wait, so you're saying how racist he is, but he fucking let out Kodak Black. And thank God. Let out Kodak Black. He's like, he's letting out all of these notable people from the Black community. And he's signing all these bills that would give a bunch of federal money to historically Black colleges and universities and whatever. And I just wasn't seeing any evidence that he was this big hardcore racist. But man, people were ready to fight to the death, over this rhetoric that said that he was. And anytime I would ask people, I'm like, well, why? What do you mean? Can you Like, what kind of like proof? I was like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but can you like elaborate? And nobody ever had an explanation. Nobody ever had anything to back it up. And I just realized that it was like all of this like social engineering was going on, and it started to scare me. And what really finally fucking did it for me was I used to have like a little political Instagram. That's kind of how I started in my whole like political commentary. I was like, I'm going to start like a political Instagram, and I'm going to talk about my opinion on things, you know? And so I like started one, and it like, you know, got like a couple thousand followers. And then I was talking about the Burisma. I had been talking about again, I had been talking about Hunter Biden long before like the laptop dropped, and I had kind of been on that whole thing because, like I said, I grew up in this area. I actually know people who know Hunter Biden. They went to my school. And so I was talking about it, and it was like once the laptop dropped, I was like, ha, I told you guys, see, da 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 da, look what happened. My stuff flatlined. After that, I was shadow banned. I went from getting like hundreds of likes and comments and stuff to literally like 1 or 2 people. I could not, nobody was seeing any of my posts. Instagram basically completely shadow banned my stuff. And I was like, now that's fucking inappropriate. I can't talk about like one of the most like, you know, critical public like leaders in a so-called free country, a democratic country. Am I not allowed to criticize them? Is that a problem now? And then I was like, yeah, this is weird. And then I kind of tapped into the whole, it was really like the like Black Republican movement that like changed my mind on a lot of stuff. So we went from a time where we were being rammed down all this like trans rhetoric down our throats, and it was very unnatural, and it's very top down. Anybody who says it's like a grassroots thing, of course it's not. Of course it's not. It's very corporate. It's very government sponsored. So I think it was like after they allowed that for long enough, they realized that there's only so long you're going to be able to do that. And eventually, you know, people are kind of fighting back and starting their own platforms. And after enough policy had changed, and again, they were able to get around like again, this is how you can get around, you know, to change things like legislatively through an actual democratic process takes a lot of money and time and effort, and it is a slow process. So if you want fast change, you're going to have to find these like loopholes and these little back doors, right? And I always said this, for example, one way that you can make the way that they're able to change things like Title IX and all that sort of stuff is, rather than going and changing every single law that they wanted to change, if they wanted to change the definition of a woman, you know, like add trans people, is all they had to do was actually just change the definition of a woman. And that's not a democratic thing, right? If you get these, like, you know, if we're able to change what the meaning of the word woman is, because again, there's not like a legal meaning, it's never been legally determined what the word woman is, that anywhere in legislation where the word woman appears now means something else. Now it means women and men who identify as women. And we made it so that can be anybody, right? There's no real standard. So after all that changes, then they kind of like scaled back, because I think it was especially the catalyst that finally broke the hardcore like chokehold on speech was when Elon Musk finally stepped up and acquired Twitter. Okay, so now I've noticed, like, for example, stuff that used to get my videos removed on YouTube and get my channel threatened no longer does. But I have noticed instead, rather than getting these threats and getting my videos removed, YouTube just shadow bans the shit out of me. Every single time I do a video that they don't like, I lose a bunch of subscribers, and, like, you know, my views all tank for a little while, right? So they just make it like, I don't think that this channel will ever really be like majorly successful. I just don't think it's ever going to be possible. I think that, you know, and it's interesting because before I was on, my channel was rapidly growing for like a very short stint. And then it was like, you know, then I got my first like violation, and after that it was like no more. And it's not that like my quality has changed or my effort has changed, whatever. So I say all this to say, now that the left has been so heavily whatever, and people are so, I think they kind of knew that people were going to get so like and now they realized that there was going to be such a huge backswing. They had to now create what was going to be like the secondary sort of controlled opposition that they were going to allow for Republicans, right? And they had to start with then, like, and of course, and they had to, like, it wasn't going to be like a cis person, a non-trans identifying person to do it. They got a bunch of little pet trans people. And of course, these pet trans people, because one thing that trans people love is attention, right? I mean, man, it is real hard for a trans identifying person to pass up an opportunity of attention, and we had Caitlyn Jenner, who, came out as Woman of the Year, and he was the perfect candidate to be the first seed planted on the Republican side as being the more reasonable trans person. And it's like, once you're so heavily inundated with so much insanity that's literally going off the edge of the world, off to the left, and it's just like so crazy, and we almost become desensitized for how insane some of this has been because it went so far left, that once they introduced the so-called reasonable trans person, right? Then it's like everybody wanted to like cling to them. It's like, oh, thank God there's one that's like reasonable, because we had been so jammed down our throats all the super unreasonable things. Oh my God, yeah, Kai Decadent says, and if it feels like you are making waves, you'll get censored or your channel get taken down. Vanessa Vokey I want to and the reason why I'll always love Vanessa Vokey, and I will forever give her the credit that I think that she deserves, even as she's like, moved away from making content or whatever. Vanessa Vokey was doing it at a time when like really not a lot of people were. I'm not saying that there weren't other rad femme channels, but she was the most brazen. And she went and she was going after these big, this is back when these people were like completely untouchable. You could not criticize Sam Lux, right? It was Sam Lux that Vanessa Vokey first went after. And Sam Lux is this like huge this homosexual, transsexual, little like Twinkie gay guy, trans woman, whatever, who's like a real like TPA, trans privilege activist. Vanessa Vokey made a video about Sam, and Sam responded. And after that, it was like open season against, Magdalene Burns. Magdalene Burns first, right? Of course, right? Magdalene Burns, and all of that. But again, you have to remember, Magdalene Burns was part of the LGBTQ, right? You had Vanessa Vokey, who was like a white, Canadian, heterosexual, like, and an she's autistic. She's like high functioning autistic. So she's got this like very blunt affect, this like really just blunt way of just like whatever. And remember, Magdalene Burns was still somewhat covered as like a victim class, right? But not Vanessa Vokey. Okay. Vanessa Vokey, again, white, heterosexual, and a young woman who they like, she's like the ultimate like Karen that like they love to go after. So Vanessa Vokey, I know the Mr. Beard thing. So Vanessa Vokey went after Sam, and the reason why Mr. Beard went after Vanessa Vokey was because of the whole Sam Lux. If you type in Vanessa Vokey, you will find literally so many videos. Like Vanessa Vokey became like the poster child of like the TERFs, right? The poster child of like YouTube TERFs, and they were all taking turns going after her. And the thing that was so sick about it was that Vanessa Vokey could not respond, because every time she even responded or tried to defend herself, her videos were being heavily censored and taken down. And the ones that stayed up, if you go through her comments section, the stuff that people said about this woman was so grotesque and insane. And then Mr. Beard did a video, and the reason why I decided to start making videos in defense of Vanessa Vokey, because I was so horrified that it was like Vanessa Vokey was putting herself out there and was fielding so much vitriol and hate, and she would keep going. She really would like keep her composure and keep going. And I was just so sickened by our TERF community and the gender criticals. Nobody had her back. I never saw another person step, like they would like quietly have her back or like, you know, maybe comment on her videos and stuff like that. But nobody was willing to stand up to any of these fucking people on her behalf. It was like we were all just like watching this woman get burnt, you know, for us. And nobody, and then Radfems were all like, also had stuff to say about her. Like they were talking shit about her. Like her ideals weren't pure enough. And then you have like fucking imbeciles like Lisa Michelle. To this day, I think Lisa Michelle is like one of the biggest pieces of shit. Lisa Michelle, who was going and like making videos talking about how like Vanessa Vokey was embracing femininity and she's not a true God, I hate Lisa Michelle. God, I can't stand her. But, and I was like, you piece of shit. We all know that Lisa Michelle cannot handle any sort of criticism, cannot, for the fucking life of her, handle anybody saying about her, right? Will block you. It's like she heavily curates her comments, so it's all just like a hug box about like how great Lisa Michelle is and her, you know, and she's just this big hypocrite, this fake, like, separatist. You know, meanwhile, she's chasing down the Yogurt Gate dude and like that. I saw that coming like months, you know, in advance because they were always flirting. She's so fucking fake. But like, and it's like, so you're going to sit here and lead the charge on our side to sit there and keep going after this woman because what? Because she like likes photography and to wear dresses and you hate any woman who I don't know. You just hate women in general. It's like you hate men and you hate women. You can't decide who you hate more. So I then decided to stand up and like, whatever. So I say all that to say, it's like, you guys got to remember now, finally, we have more gender critical voices. And now because of Twitter, because of Elon Musk with Twitter stuff, we finally are able to start really picking up steam with gender critical voices. And I give all the respect to like Kelly J. Keene, Aja the Empress and I have gone at it in the past, but she was, you know, Aja the Empress was in this. You have J.K. Rowling, Vanessa Vokey, you know, even like Kara Dansky, who, you know, I don't fully agree with on everything, but it was a lot of these women, and you have like, you know, what's it called? Jennifer Tom, I gotta call Jen. Jen called me yesterday. She's like living in Thailand right now. But Jennifer Thomas, who like was really starting with boots on the ground, you know, even Joey Bright, who's been in this for a long time. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other people. LA Androphobia. So, you know, but in terms of YouTube history, Vanessa Vokey like deserves her flowers. Yeah, Megan Murphy, exactly. And then, you know, Genevieve Gluck has been doing this for a long time. Anna Slatz. You know, there's a lot of different women, and this is all before, you know, critical, like, and then I think it was finally once Matt, and I hate to say it, I know a lot of you guys are gonna get mad, but once Matt Walsh finally got in the conversation, and the Daily Wire had a lot to change the trajectory of this thing. Matt Walsh is who really introduced this to a lot of Republicans and made this like an issue for the right. However, they saw that it was happening where it was like they realized they had to control the Republican narrative, right? They couldn't just keep throwing all this hardcore queer theory at it. They needed people that like Republicans and the right were going to find palatable. That's when they found, you know, Bruce Jenner. And again, Bruce Jenner, of course the right's going to like Bruce Jenner. You know, Bruce Jenner is an Olympian. He's, you know, wealthy. He has, you know, basically traditional family values or whatever, even though he left his wife. I mean, not really, but like, you know what I mean. You know, and he's able to speak and he's saying all the right things, even though he's like doing, it's gross. He's like living out his fetish on screen, but he's saying all the right things. He's speaking out against the Leah Thomas and stuff like that. And they're able to get him to say the things that he wants. But, you know, he's kind of creating like a more palatable version. And so what happened was it was like, and people were just clinging to that. And if you even look in my comments when I was talking about how like we don't need, I did that one little video where I was like, we don't need true trans people. And people are like, oh no, but I think they're an important stepping stone for people. But the problem is they're not going to be a stepping stone. That's going to be like a final destination for a lot of people. They're going to say, okay, true trans, it's the perfect compromise, right? I don't have to sound like I'm a hateful transphobe because I'm supporting some trans people, and I can be like, oh, I do support trans people, but now this is a way where people are allowed to have more of a voice to criticize the behavior of some trans people without saying that I'm against all trans people, right? And then that becomes the compromise, where it's like it's like these like these so-called right-wing new trans people. There is, let me just to be clear, and I'm gonna make myself fucking as big as possible for this, okay? All right? Look, okay? You guys see my face? There is no such thing as a gender critical trans person. Do you understand? There is no such thing as a gender critical trans person. There is also no such thing as a conservative trans person. Or you know what I mean? Like a traditional conservative trans person. They might have like some conservative thoughts on other issues, but no, that goes against like the fundamentals of what so much of like conservatism is about, which is about like, traditional family values and, just traditional shit. That there's nothing traditional about what the fuck they're doing. And like sexual modesty and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, Jesus fuck. So, all right. So now it opened up a whole new sort of, it's like, and I think all of this was very controlled, right? So then after, they kind of rammed down our throat for a few years, all of the queer theory, and they realized that people were starting to get like really sick of it. And it was the rad femmes who were starting to push back. And they're like, oh, whoa, we don't want the rad femmes to be the one in control of the gender critical narrative. And they realized that they were going to have to try to get that there was going to be no way to eradicate the gender critical pushback. And so rather than fight fire with fire, they realized that the best way was going to be to infiltrate the gender critical sort of, narrative and start to control it from within, right? So that's where you get like the Blair White and, the Arielle Scarcella. So they got a bunch of people from the LGBT, right? And all these like, old school like gays and old school trans people. And it's like they kind of create this like false narrative and like, generate these false memories of, oh, the old school transsexuals, the back in the day, as if like, no, it was never really like this. It's like, yeah, I know they technically existed, whatever. So that those people now are creating the counter narrative that is palatable and safe enough for the trans lobby, right? Because it doesn't eradicate, it's not calling for the eradication of trans medicalization, not at all. In fact, it's actually calling for more trans medicalization, that the only way that you can really be trans is if you medicalize. That's where you get like the trans medicalists, the true scum. Okay, and it's like they realized that the biggest thing that was waking people up to this whole trans issue, because let's be real, women's issues are really, and have not traditionally been like a big driver for men or women, but it was the childhood transition, right? Once we, so they bombed, they had this experiment where they tried to use Jazz Jennings, which massively backfired. Jazz Jennings was supposed to be the one who was going to come in, and it's like, I think that they were overly ambitious, right? I think it was like the trans medical lobby was overly ambitious, and they didn't predict, they inaccurately predicted what the outcome of this Jazz Jennings thing. They thought Jazz was going to be the one to convince everybody that trans kids exist. Because remember, part of the way that they got people to jump onto the trans wagon in the first place was by using the concept of trans kids. It was twofold. It was like, first they started with the idea of like a trans genocide, and it was, and then they realized, okay, well, not a lot of people are super sympathetic to like creepy grown men who are wearing, like women's clothing. And there was like, yeah, people are like, okay. But then they made it about black trans women. And since everybody was already all on the, BLM thing, and everybody wanted to sit there and be like, oh, I got black friends. I love black people. What do you mean? a black friend at work, and man, we hang out all the time. And it's like, people like all these like white liberals were like trying super hard to prove how like not racist they like actually are. That then it was like, oh, well, okay, we can get on board with that. But it still wasn't quite enough, because it is kind of a hard sell to get these like creepy adult men to seem like they're these little like, victims that need all this protection and need us to do all of this stuff to, change society to protect them. Then they brought out the trans kids. And man, that was the magic bullet that did it. You had the cute little Jazz Jennings who, again, because they're androgynous enough and they actually can like pull off looking like a girl. And everybody's like, oh, and they're like, and they come out like wearing the t-shirt. It's like, I'm the scary trans person the media warned you about. And everyone's like, oh God, like, oh, these poor kids. Let me see. I'm the scary trans person the media warned you. I don't even know if I'm typing this right. Yeah, like this kind of stuff. Let's see. Oh God. They had like, again, where everyone's like, oh, like Bunny, like that's not right. Let's see. Oh, here we go. This is the type of shit, right? This stuff. Hold on, let me see. So this right here was the sort of like, the catalyst that made a lot of people, I'm the scary transgender person in the media. And I was like, oh. So then we had, Arielle Scarcella, Buck Angel, and Blair White became like the triple threat, right? So think about it. And then, you got like, like, it's like, that's the people who are going to win over the sort of younger crowd, right? So you have Caitlyn Jenner, who was going to handle like the older, and again, it's Caitlyn Jenner is not some random person who came out. Caitlyn Jenner has been a celebrity for a long time. You got all these older people who knew him as Bruce, and he's this like respectable guy who took care of his families, financially successful. He had a very, historically has not been a controversial person, doesn't have like a whole history of scandals. He took Kris Jenner and her 3 children in and married her and raised the 3 girls as his own. Well, I mean, the 4 kids, I guess we always forget about the brother. The 4 kids as his own, had his own 2 daughters. And I guess, he had like Brody Jenner and the other ones from Laguna Beach. Can you believe it? I always forget that Brody Jenner, remember on Laguna Beach, was Bruce Jenner's son. But it's like, this blended family who's, after this like wife had experienced like this, huge trauma of losing her husband to cancer and, whatever. It's like, so these people, and, he was this like big time like Olympian that like people remember. So like the older Republicans, again, it's like, they know and like Bruce, and they might not agree with what he's doing, but he's able to speak well, and he spoke to Barbara Walters and talked about his reasons for transitioning. So, most people, believe it or not, are not hateful. Most people are just kind of like live and let live, as long as it's not totally in their face, and they already like Bruce to begin with. So, there's some people are like, ew, get it away from me. I don't want anything to do with any of this. But then you also have plenty of people who are like, yeah, you know what, if that's what he wants in life. And they waited until there was a whole, like that the culture had shifted enough in support of gay rights and gay marriage to then drop the trans bomb on us. They waited till they had finally achieved like the highest level of acceptance. We had finally won, through Obama. The only like real thing that Obama did for anybody was legalize gay marriage. He like did nothing for the Black community. And it was like, so then you would think, okay, then the issue should be done. Like there's gay rights are at an all-time high. People are learning and understanding more and leaving people alone. And there's, like, we're not seeing any like gay hate crimes. They waited till it was like acceptance is all-time high to then start ramming the trans shit down our throat, right? And pretending that it was somehow, affiliated with the LGB, even though it's not, right? Because again, gay, lesbian, gay and bisexual deal with sexuality, whereas trans and queer deal with like, these mystical identities that no one fully understands what it means or where it's coming from. So then you have Arielle Scarcella. So then it's Arielle Scarcella, who's like, you know, the cis lesbian. Arielle Scarcella, who's like, you know, a cool, smart, you know, New York lesbian who's, you know, like a millennial. Then you have, you know, Buck Angel, who again has just always been like a performer and looking for any kind of like, you know, stage she can get her feet on, right? And I mean, and look, Buck Angel is very charismatic, you know, funny, is like, you know, comes off as sweet and likable. And so you got those two, you know, Arielle's like the smart, cool, like lesbian. You got Buck Angel, who's, you know, the like, yeah, trans man who can laugh at herself and tell the truth and whatever. And then you have Blair White, who super skyrocketed. Why? Because it was like, you know, there's a lot of GAMPs out there and even amongst Republicans. And it was like Blair White was pretty much able to fashion himself to look like the sort of typical look that all, you know, that all the conservatives love, you know what I mean? And he like totally, like a lot of these troons, like totally, yeah, Buck tries to be cuddly, exactly, Helena. Blair, like, must study Kim Kardashian, and like really tries to pass off her mannerisms and her whole look, the kind of like, you know, toned down, like, pretty, and like, you know, does like makeup, a lot of makeup, but not like clowny makeup or not too extreme, you know what I mean? And it's like that kind of like, yeah, like, hold on, let me just show you, you know, like this look that conservative men love. And then, you know, holding the like AR-15, you know, it's like this whole thing. And that's when it was like, oh, and a bunch of, you know, Republican men are like, oh, hey, I can get behind this. As long as they look like this, that's cool. And then it's like these people were able to like really underscore the binary, right? I mean, really underscore like gender conformity, right? You get to be trans as long as you uphold these sort of gender norms that the Republicans and the conservatives love, right? So as long as like you're the kind of like, you know, like the sort of like porn girlfriend, you know what I mean, who has like the, you know, mousy brown hair and like the light makeup and like the, you know, like really make sure that like, you know, she's wearing the clothes that these men love to see them in and is passing and whatever. I mean, obviously we don't think that Blair passes, but you know what I'm talking about. And then Buck Angel, who passes. So it's like kind of, I feel like a lot of these Republicans are like, hey, I can get behind this. Like, I'm so tired of being called a transphobe and saying I'm hateful. I'm so tired of fighting against it. And it's like, hey, this is a much better choice. If the choice is between like the blue-haired, like Zer, Zem, like queer theory weirdo, or these like reasonable trans people who, you know, at least the trans women try their best to really look like, you know, what we would want in a woman, and the trans man are like your stereotypical jacked up whatever guy, then that's great. We can get behind that. And so that's when all this started. So then that became a whole popular thing, and it became this whole like the based like true trans commentators. So then you have like, you know, Blair White, Buck Angel, and then Marcus Dib. So sorry, it's like an hour in. We're finally going to start talking about Marcus Dib. So Marcus has always clearly looked up to that whole trio, right? I always looked up to especially Blair White. And I think the first person to give him any time and attention was Arielle Scarcella. So Arielle Scarcella, her attention was Arielle Scarcella. So Arielle Scarcella, or I don't know if she just responded to it. So I always like to go back whenever I'm researching somebody. I like to look at like what their earliest videos were like, because sometimes those can be very illuminating. And yeah, I know, I'm sorry that like I'm not good at staying on topic. I mean, the thing is, it's like, I always feel like there's so much background that's important, you know, so that I can really get into these topics. And I just think that some of these people who get so massively sort of like famous on YouTube and they amass these like huge followings are like so boring. It's such like surface level analysis. And like they always like, recycle like the same few clips and have like the same takes. And it's like, none of it's really like anything groundbreaking or like new or challenging. It's like, and then it's like, okay, great. Here I made my hot take, follow me. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter and beep, and, subscribe to me on Patreon. Everyone's like, oh, wow. Oh, that was amazing. You're the best, bro. And it's like, bro, what? It's like not that. Okay. But anyway, all right. So oldest. So, all right. So, all right. So it seems like in the beginning, his big thing, actually, what is the one true trans person that I actually find like slightly palatable, even though I still don't agree with them, was Rose of Dawn. I don't know if anybody remembers Rose of Dawn. The thing I liked about Rose of Dawn was his whole point was like he would like rip apart the whole idea of like the trans genocide and stuff like that. But Rose of Dawn was basically just like, he was another one of these. And I feel like the reason why he didn't get so popular was A, because he's not attractive. He kind of is like, I think he's fairly intelligent and somewhat likable. But
hi everyone, Mark Barton here. It's a promise.
Rose of Dawn, I think that Rose of Dawn was also more sensitive. Had like a just more sensitive to criticism. And it's like, if you're a sensitive person, there's only so long you're going to be able to handle being like a controversial figure online. I'm sure he was getting like ripped apart. And I think he just fell back. But he had a bunch of good points. And his whole thing was basically like, I have the real gender dysphoria. And like, we just want to be undetected, And it's like, but he still advocates for being able, like, he's still one of these who's like, you can be in the women's restroom as long as you pass. And it puts the onus on women. So it's like, we know that these men are delusional. So they all think that they pass. So is the onus on women to step up to men and be like, hey, you don't pass? That's a dangerous thing, right? So, I'm not like promoting him as I don't agree with him at all. He was just less like obnoxious. I think he's wrong. But he was good at calling out certain things about the trans community, and he was way less obnoxious than like Blair and all them. So then like he kind of fell off. So I think it's like he, Marcus Dib realized that there was like, yeah. So now so it started off as like Arielle Scarcella, Blair White, and Buck Angel. And then it grew to like Brad Palumbo. Everybody's like, oh, you should check out Brad Palumbo. Like he's this real based gay, bro. He's not. He's so cringe. And he's just like, but like, he's just like following along. And I think it's hard for like, I had called out Andy No on Twitter earlier. Hold on, let me see. Because Andy No, I didn't even realize this because I guess I don't pay enough attention. Andy No, hold on for a second. What is this? Hold on. Sorry for a second. I don't know why I'm like in whatever. Andy No uses preferred pronouns, and everybody's trying to be like, oh, he's just doing it to like point out the absurdity. And I'm like, I don't think so, because there's not enough irony in the way that he does it. And I think what happens is a lot of these like LGBTQ people are already so kind of intertwined with a lot of these other people, and it's like they want to call out the bullshit, but they also don't want to alienate their friends, and they're all kind of like, and I think what happens is like, even the other guy that I called out, they actually want to, I say all this to say, you got the left who's like the hardcore queer theory stuff. Now the right, which normally would have been gender critical, is these gender critical trans people who get to speak for us across the board. And it's like the whole idea, and then it kind of gives people this like safe compromise. Again, there is no compromise in this because there's no compromise in what the truth is. The truth is binary. It's either true or not true. It's like, they're trying to preserve trans, right? Because it's like they're trying to give it like a life raft where so people who are getting so tired of the gender critical stuff, rather than now being part of like who are so tired of the queer theory stuff, rather than going discovering real gender criticals and real TERFs and real radical feminists, they get to go discover the based trans people, the gender critical trans people, and then that becomes their life raft. And they're like, oh, great, this is who I agree with. And they get, pumped with their rhetoric. And their rhetoric is really just about making sure that people don't totally turn their back on the trans thing. They don't really care about women and children, right? Or society at large. They realize the reason everybody's like, oh, but they stand against childhood transition and da-da-da. Not really. The thing is, childhood transition is what, when I was talking about Jazz Jennings, they introduced Jazz was supposed to be the person who was going to like make us all like, wow, we realize that, it's the whole born this way thing, and they can kind of piggyback off of like, the gay civil rights stuff where it says child has always been this way and they start off cute, and it's so much, easier to sympathize with a child who's saying, I was always trans, and who's been fed lines from their parents or whatever. And they thought that this whole transition was going to be a success, right? And it was basically introducing, it was so disgusting, and TLC needs to be held accountable. It's like they sat there and they showed this to a whole nation of parents who, some of them are just dumb and gullible. And it's like, oh, wow, I have a child who's acting like this. Maybe I need to do that, whatever. And that was a way that they were going to create a whole new genre of people who would need lifelong medical care from childhood for the rest of their lives, right? And it backfired because of how horribly wrong, and predictably, but how horribly wrong. And it just shows how narcissistic and arrogant these physicians were to think that this was going to go well. And then that's what kind of started to wake people up. It was supposed to make everybody more accepting of trans kids, but it actually showed us how horrible and horrifying all this is. So that's when people really started, like, who maybe otherwise wouldn't have cared. They don't care about women's rights or whatever, but they cared about the kids. So these, like, based gender criticals realize that, oh shit, people are not happy about the childhood transition stuff. They are not happy about kids having all of this stuff and being exposed to this stuff. So that's going to have to be point number one. If we start speaking out against the kids stuff, because it doesn't affect them because they're all adults, right? These are all adults. And, as long as they can still get their drugs and surgery, and they saw that people wanted to gender criticals wanted to shut the whole thing down. They're like, shit, we need to come forward. Let's say that we're against the childhood transition stuff. We can speak out against that. And that made everybody happy. People are I'm sorry, it's like the bar is so low that it's like if you're saying that you're against, like, mutilating kids, that you're this, like, hero, and then now everybody can just kind of, like, compromise on all the other stuff. And it's like, no, because there's not... Guys, don't you see that this is a strategy? It's not actually about caring about kids and all this, all these other stuff. They don't want their stuff taken away. They don't want it so that they're not allowed to use the bathrooms that they want to use, and they can't keep doing the things that they want to do. And also, it's like, if you listen to Buck Angel and Blair White, they hate other people speaking for them. So we're going to see with Marcus Dib, Marcus hates hearing other people speaking for her. She hates, like, they just hate these other people, and it's like, for them, it's like, these other people who are like, maybe like lower IQ or like kind of like dumpy, who probably are very mentally ill, who are, delusional and don't have like the charisma that these other like trans influencers have. And they find these rando people on TikTok, and they basically like sacrifice those people on the altar of gender critical So it's like, here, we're going to show you all these trans people that like we don't want to associate with, and we'll dunk on them and make fun of them and make them sound ridiculous. And so that whatever we say sounds so reasonable because we're better spoken and we know how to not be as ridiculous, right? They knew how to play their cards a little bit smarter. So they joined in, and we'll dunk on these other guys, and then you'll think that we're all on the same side, right? And I'm so tired of people saying like, hey, Blair's on the same side. You know, like you gotta like work with people who agree with you. No, no, we're not. And that's what they're doing. And so Marcus and Buck, if you watch Buck's channel, she literally makes fun of people for doing exactly what she does. It's just maybe these people don't look as good as like, you know, she was able to look. Or maybe these people don't have the same sort of charisma, or they're just autistic and they're just weird, and they're an easy target to make fun of. That's all that it is. Okay, so let's listen to Marcus. And I'm so mad that he calls himself Marcus because my boyfriend's name is Marcus. And I always say this. I mean, she calls herself Marcus. Because, yeah, my boyfriend's name is Marcus. And you don't get to be Marcus. And all of these TIFs, these trans-identified females, all just sound like low testosterone gay men. It's like, and so anyway, so let's go. Marcus Dib is from Denmark. So she's a Danish content creator. She seems pretty young. I don't know exactly how old she is. Let's just see. Marcus Dib age. Oh, Marcus was born in 1999. So what, she's 24, 25 or 24. Oh, she was born in Australia? Huh? No, that's Marcus Dibble. Sorry, Marcus Dib. So yeah, let's see, Marcus Dib. And of course, it's funny because she always talks about how like, oh, she just wants to fly below the radar and just be seen as a man, and that's it. But she loves showing pictures of herself, you know, back when before her so-called transition. So yeah, this is Marcus Dib. Who's this that she's with? I'm sorry, but bro, what are we looking at here? Damn it, I'm not logged in. I don't know why oh my god. Oh, her name's Marcia. Is her name Marcia? Marcia. Oh, Marcus. Marcella. I don't know. Marcia. Yeah, so that's what we're working with. I'm sorry, look at the hips. Marcus and her beautifully gynecoid hips, okay? And man, the nips, they really just barely made it, didn't they? Good Lord. No, she dates men. So this is, again, and that's a whole interesting phenomenon of like, these are like the creepy version of, you know, it's like you have the women who are just lesbians with internalized homophobia, and then you have these women who want to have sex with men and pretend that they're gay men. She had so she always talks about how like, yo, if you want to be a true transsexual, you need to put in all this effort and put effort into your transition. And she was like calling some of these other women who take testosterone and clearly are at least putting in some effort as trenders, and they're not as going far as her. But all she did was she had a double mastectomy, she had her uterus removed, and she takes testosterone, but she didn't get the rat dog, didn't get the metoidoplasty. So, you know, again, whenever you ask these people what a true transsexual actually is and how to define it, no one can give you a coherent definition. They always say something like, for trans-identified males, it's a homosexual transsexual. It's the autogynephiles are the fake ones. Those are the creeps. The homosexual transsexuals are the real trans. And then you even get like autogynephiles who say the same thing, and they try to claim that there's some like third type that like these dudes who are like, you know, ex-military and are married to women and then turn out and they're like, I'm a third type. I'm not an autogynephile, even though like I fit the like etiology of autogynephilia like to the T. Somehow it's not me. It's like, yeah, okay, sir. But you know, so it's like they say that it's like what God, I've had a few spaces that I hosted on Twitter where like I argued this with these like the Blair White true trans, and it's a bunch of like the true trans people that Blair White follows. Like if you look at who Blair White follows on Twitter, it's a bunch of these like trans identified males who are like claim that like they're like libertarian or like right wing. They all say libertarian. They're libertarian and they're patriots. They all say they're like a patriot. A lot of them are ex-military, and they all claim that they're not autogynephiles. And I hosted a couple spaces where I was like arguing with a bunch of them, a bunch of the dudes that he follows, so there obviously has some connection to Blair White. And I was like, what is a true trans? And it's so funny, bro. I hate that some of the dude didn't record one of them. I had hosted one that got taken down that was like went super viral for a while, and then Twitter took it down. I guess someone reported it. I'm so mad because that was a really good one. And then there was another one that like Holly, if anyone remember, I've had Holly who that I like I've made some videos about. He's this like British dude. I think he's like Indian, but like lives in Britain, whatever. And they'll all start bickering with each other about the answer. I'm like, no, I just want to know if you guys are saying that like a true transsexual versus a transgender, like how do we know who's who? And I'm like, and I'm not even asking that, you know, like to be coy. Like I'm asking, like for real, like how do you define it? Bro, they could not, no one can answer it. They're all bickering with each other. It's like they say that like it's a homosexual transsexual, but then like the like straight dudes will chime in. They're like, well, no, not only homosexual transsexuals, because that would mean that they're out, you know. And they're like, but like usually homosexual transsexual, and then you actually have to medically transition. And then Holly's talking about how you have to medically transition, put in effort into your transition. Yet Holly doesn't have breast implants, has never had any kind of surgery, and I think just takes like estradiol and progesterone. Or I don't even know. I think it was even like he doesn't even do that. Like he barely does anything at all. And I was like, okay. So, and it's like none of them have had bottom surgery. Like, so there's no consensus and there's no coherence. And yet they all claim that they're like, you know the difference. Stop pretending like you don't know. I'm like, no, I don't. No, I don't. It's like, why? If you just dress like more conservative and you don't get like nose piercings and don't have like that sort of like post-punk style to you, like make it make sense. Oh my God. Okay, so again, for somebody, you know, and she always claims that like, oh, the way that you can tell that her gender dysphoria is so super serial and, you know, more super serial than other people's claimed gender dysphoria is because she doesn't like Marcus Dib always dunks on these like other trans identifying people who have like more androgyny to them. You know, she was like, I want to look fully like a man. I don't want to retain any of my female characteristics at all. I totally want to look like a man. And she basically says that anybody who kind of like has more of like an androgynous or like fluid or gender nonconforming style can't really have dysphoria. And it's like, he was like, yeah, why would I want that? I went through all of this stuff to be a man. And, you know, it would be so like difficult for me, I guess, because she had a radical hysterectomy. She doesn't get her periods anymore. And she always talks about how she doesn't understand how trans identifying females, trans men, aren't totally dysphoric over their period. Yet you constantly show us pictures of what you used to look like. You're like pre-transition, you know, like this was her right here. And it's like, and I guess she's like affiliated with Gays Against Groomers. So I'm not logged in, so it's not letting me do more. So yeah, anyway, here we go. Not a real man. Let's see. So her bio is Marcus Dib, YouTuber, not a real YouTuber, not a real man, but a biological woman living life as a man. So pretty much exactly what Buck Angel says. All right. Oh, God fucking damn it. Hold on for 1 second. I'm going to see if I can log in for a second. It was being a pain in the ass about letting me log in. Hold on. Please let me log in. Here, while I'm doing this, hold on. I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to let you watch while I'm trying to log in. Yeah. Shoot. Hold on. I'm going to, God damn, I just pulled it off the screen. Let you guys watch a video. Marcus Dib. Sorry, and again, sorry for like the long, super convoluted like background. I just think that like I really need you guys to understand like how this all kind of came to be. We can't forget the history of all of this stuff, right? We can't forget how this all kind of happened, because we're going to get lost in the sauce and we're going to like lose the truth about how we got here. And if we lose how we got here, we're not going to be able to find our way back, okay? And it's really important, and it really helps to underscore like, you know, why this stuff is all a psyop, why all this stuff is a lie. Here we go. And I need you guys to understand that stuff. All right, here we go. Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's important, unfortunately. Oh, come on. All right. Let's see. She was cute. I don't know why she couldn't just get because it wasn't enough attention. Me says she was cute. I don't know why she couldn't just get a short haircut and wear mask clothes, because it's not enough attention. It's not enough attention. I love you guys. Good to see you. Kai, can we please do a live stream? I know I keep saying that. I gotta like follow up on. Are you down? Kai, I really want you on my channel. And I think everybody else does too, or a lot of people do. People have definitely requested Kai Decadence. All right. We got to make it happen. All right. Because you are like a really good example of somebody who like really, really could have fallen into all of this. All right. Yeah, please. No, email me. Email me later. A slightlytwistedfemale@gmail.com. You're a really good example of somebody who could really have like gotten sucked into all of this. You know what I mean? And I think you're a sobering voice to listen to. And we don't need to listen to true trans people. We need to listen to people like you. You know, and I'm sorry, and it's like, you know, it's good to listen to detransitioners, as they can tell us a lot. But it's also good to listen to people who never got sucked into this stuff, you know, and who were very much right at the edge of it and could have and probably were being, you know, coaxed into, you know, coming and being a part of this, and had a lot of like, you know, similar reasons for doing it, but who were able to stay above the fray from the beginning. You know what I mean? Like, I think that shows that you have a very high level of critical thinking skills that, you know, I think that we could all benefit from hearing about. So, yeah. She just, yeah. And again, I think the reason why, like why trans-identified females tend to pass better than trans-identified males is because I do think that we're so much better honed evolutionarily, because women don't pose the same threat as males do, as men do. We're more honed at identifying men. And it's like, I feel like we'll always kind of give, just to, you know, like, just to be safe, you know, over assume that people are men versus the other way around. We are not as honed or, you know, tuned into identifying who's, you know, possibly a woman. And I just think the facial hair is very confusing for people. And I think the fact too is that we also do have like a huge crisis right now of testosterone amongst men. Currently, where men have the same, men of today who are at like the peak of their manhood of 2024 have the same testosterone. So like a 30-year-old man or a 29-year-old man, I think like, what is testosterone peak around like 27 or something like that, or 27 and 30 or something like that. It's like when you're at your peak testosterone. Men who should be at their peak today in 2024 have similar testosterone levels on average as 65-year-old men of like the World War II era, right? Or like, World War II, up until like, I don't know, like the 60s or something like that. And that's serious. I mean, that has really serious implications. And I think that we're used to just a lot of men who are, like not as masculine looking as we're used, like would be expecting and stuff like that today. And that's across the entire population. Yeah, Katie says you can see it by looking at them. They don't make them like they did back in the 80s and 90s. And it's true. Yeah, birth control and the water supply. I also think hormones in industrial meat. Apparently somebody was talking about how like the runoff, there's a lot of runoff, like when we're doing like industrial agriculture, because of like runoff, and that gets in water and it's in our food, and there's just estrogen in a lot of things. And I think that it's a problem. Yeah, totally. DJ says it's also people not working out either. And also the obesity epidemic. I think that having a lot of excess adipose fat causes testosterone to aromatize into estrogen. That's how men have estrogen in their system. Right, it aromatizes into estrogen. Testosterone aromatizes into estrogen, so it's like that's how, like for example, KISE people, with the disorder of sexual development, complete androgen insensitivity disorder, where their testosterone receptors don't work, so their testes will release testosterone, but their body can't process it, and then it aromatizes into estrogen, and then they become estrogenized. Yeah, we do need a discussion on this, but I need like somebody who knows what they're talking about, because I like, All right, anyway, all right. So here we go. Let's see. Transphobia is on the rise. He really goes, so he seems to go after trans-identified males a lot. I mean, she goes after trans-identified males a lot. Yeah. Hold on. There's a couple that I wanted to, hold on. Wait, are these popular? Okay, hold on. It was the pronouns. Let's see. My pronouns. So again, it's a lot. Well, let's listen to this real quick. He hates the non-binary, and he hates, he seems to go after trans-identified males, which I think a lot of trans-identified females really actually do hate trans-identified males for just the typical reasons that they're like super misogynists, and yeah.
Definition here.
Then you disagree with the entire...
If there's a biological man, a trans woman, I disagree with you on the definition here.
Then you disagree with the entire existence of transsexual people. Good for you. The channel Jubilee is well known for their series called Middle Ground. It's about two sides of a political issue trying to find some middle ground. Today we're going to react to 6 women trying to agree on what feminism is all about. And if you're wondering why I'm talking about feminism today, it's because, of course, the trans topic is involved. And also it's because my good friend Arielle was on this panel and she did amazing, but you'll find out.
Feminism that doesn't include trans women isn't feminism.
It's really important to include trans women and trans people and gender nonconforming people, which, by the way, I am gender queer myself. I don't actually identify as a woman.
You may not identify as a woman, but you are one. Without knowing her, I think it's because she had an uncomfortable experience as a woman, and then she's trying to get away from that fact. I do understand if that's the reason, and I hope that she feels better, but I don't think it's going to help her in the long run, because she sounds quite delusional when she says, I'm not a woman.
I also want to just level set and say that we are having this conversation without trans women.
Do we know that?
For sure.
Okay, what's so crazy is I have 215 people or 210 people in the chat right now, and I've already lost 6 subscribers during this. It's crazy. Anytime I have a popular stream, I like lose subscribers. And even though it's like, it'll be like virtually 100% likes on the stream, and I won't, and you can tell if people unsubscribe to you based on a video. If they have subscribed from the video, it'll show you that. But it's like, it won't show, it'll be like, oh, I, have like gained subscribers from the stream. I'm telling you, this is how I really feel like I'm for sure shadow banned. Anytime I have a successful stream, even ones where I gain followers from the stream, I like overall lose followers. It doesn't make any sense. And I just feel like it's this like new way that like YouTube is suppressing channels without having to actually take them down and deal with the backlash. Because I feel like now they realize that eventually they could have the same backlash that Twitter had.
I identify as trans. She identifies as non-binary, and she's on a feminist panel. My pronouns. So maybe she doesn't belong here either. They don't belong here. Plot twist: I am biologically female, and I'll never deny that.
Well, bravo, you know basic biology, but I will still not give you any credit. I don't agree with Arielle using her preferred pronouns they them, but I mean that's up to Arielle, of course.
I lived as
okay. So Marcus sits there and like gets mad about like the whole idea of preferred pronouns. Yet has a whole video like complaining about how people should use her preferred pronouns. It makes no sense.
Woman for most of my life, spent a lot of time, the majority of my life in these spaces with women. That does give me a kind of unique perspective now being a trans non-binary person.
You still live your life as a woman. Every single person in your life and every single stranger see you as a woman. I don't care if your friends and family members call you they them. They do it to please you. They don't do it because they see you as a they them. They see you as a non-binary person, because that's not a real thing. Even though that the people in your life believe in non-binary, they will never, in their heads, see you as anything other than a woman. That's reality. I'm not trying to be mean, because there's nothing wrong with being seen as a woman. So it's not an insult. Of course it's not. But you need to understand.
We all see you as a woman, though, Marcus. Like, we see you as a woman, and you told us that you literally said that we're transphobic. You and Buck both say that we're transphobic if we call you she, her.
The only reason why someone in your life call you they, them is because you ask them to. There's no such thing as being seen as non-binary. And there's nothing trans about you. How can you sit there as a woman claiming to be the same as someone like me? I've changed my entire life because of gender.
Well, it is so funny watching her talk about like, but me, I'm a true trans like me. Bro, it's like the narcissistic rage. It's so fucking hilarious. It's like, bro, like, how do you not see the hypocrisy? And it's just so aggravating. All these dumb ass people who are like, oh, like how many fucking 111,000 views off of this drivel? Like off of this drivel. And everybody's like, let's see, like everybody sit there and just agrees with this like nonsense. Oh, Bill Bomb Shiggy. I swear to God, if I see any of you in these comments like cheering this on, I'm going to, I don't know. There's nothing I'm going to do. But I'm going to clown you. That's what I'll do. Bill Bomb Shiggy 9254 says, this is why the trans community needs people like Buck, Marcus, and Blair. They actually reduce trans hate. There it is. There it is. There it is. That's the point of these people. It's not because they care about women and children. They don't care about society and the well-being. This is what it's about. They actually reduce trans hate. I was on the cusp of hating all of them until I saw these three and started listening to them. And of course, it's a bunch of men. It's so many men who like support these like true trans people, because men don't actually care about women's issues. You know what I mean? And then, men can say like, oh, I think it's, they don't want to be forced. It's like they're like amused by it, and they just don't want to be forced to like, do things that they don't want to do. But it's like, they don't really get it. You know what I mean? They don't really get it. Oh, Sally HH says, you are shadow banned. I don't get notifications anymore. Lucky to catch this one. Yeah, I'm sure. And that's why I have to make sure to like publicize my streams every time I go on like Twitter. And it's just so frustrating. It's like, so if you are not subscribed already and you're watching, don't forget to subscribe. Also, don't forget to like the stream. All that sort of stuff helps. And if you want to make a contribution, you can donate to me at Venmo at a slightlytwistedfemale@gmail.com, or I guess it's just at a slightlytwistedfemale on Venmo. That's another thing. They won't monetize my channel, so of course I can't make any money off of anything. Whereas these people are making so much money off of just this like brain dead drivel. It's so frustrating. Yeah, Ian Clark says I no longer get notifications. Yeah. Yep. All right. Oh God. As a biologist, I'm pulling my hair at them saying that biology is not true. I'm a 25-year-old gay guy. Whenever a transgender or non-binary person talks to me, I internally roll my eyes. They're so annoying to deal with. Your feelings don't mean anything to anyone. You logically have different experiences. Let's see what this guy has. 672 likes. And traits than biological people. What do you mean? All people are biological people. If biological women are saying they're uncomfortable letting people in a wig and the physicalities of a man in their spaces, respect that. It's their safety, achievements, and progress being affected, and they have the right to voice a concern. Shout out to biological women. Y'all can't be replaced. A lot of us gay guys still got your back. Well, thank you, Scotty, you darling. But it's like, why are we telling this to Marcus Dib? Marcus doesn't get it, But thank you. That I've like actually really, like appreciated, and I've enjoyed like interacting with the true gender critical gays. Like some of my like favorite subset. I get very aggravated at some of the so-called gender critical gays who like are totally still on the true trans train, but the ones who aren't are like super cool and have been like a cool part of this community. All right, let's see. Oh God. And Arielle, I'm sorry, this is so not true. Anybody, I gotta go back and do that, like the one, the lesbian Jubilee thing, because Arielle definitely did not hold her ground on that. Oh, Arielle also said that her as a lesbian would date trans-identified males if they were post-op, if they had a vagina. She literally says that she believes that trans-identified males. Yeah, we gotta watch this. I'm sorry. I know that this is like getting off track, but fuck it. It's important. Let's see. Let's see. The lesbian one. Let's see.
This makes me so incredibly uncomfortable.
This is
that we're even having this conversation.
Also, yeah. Arielle and again, Arielle Scarcella had me on her Rumble channel and was like super cool to me, and I really appreciate that. But it's funny because I talked about when we had my interview. If anybody hasn't seen it, Arielle Scarcella's Rumble channel, I did an interview with her. She was supposed to put it on the main channel, but she didn't, and I highly suspect it's because I started like talking about Blair White, and it was so funny because she was so quick to be like, oh, and just for the record, Blair's my friend, so kind of like keep it cute. And after that, I was like, there's no chance. It never made it onto the main channel. And it's funny because every Blair White video I've ever made has gotten challenged, and like I think that he goes and like tries to get all my Blair White videos taken down until I started calling him out, until I started being like, hey guys, if this video gets taken down, it's because of Blair White. And I think he like fell back a little bit off of that. But I have a few Blair White videos that I had made that are no longer here. And it's like it's always, whenever it's him. Hold on. Arielle Scarcella, Jubilee. Hold on, you guys gotta see this. Just to show, everybody's like, oh, they're so reasonable. And you know, yeah, they're on this team reality. No, they're not.
Okay, so first you're gonna find the Stitch Fix styling quiz to send you pieces you're gonna love.
It says, I love Arielle. She's putting up with none of it. She's putting up with none of it. And can they please stop using the, quote, infertile talking point? It's lazy, worse, and it's insulting. Yeah, it is bullshit. Hold on. But we got to look at this one thing. Let's see. Okay, here we go.
Bullshit. Well, I guess.
This is, I would date a trans woman. Look at this.
Wow. Yeah, you're surprised, right? Yeah. See, a lot of people don't know. I mean, does she have a vagina? I don't like.
That's a genital preference, not.
That's disgusting to say.
Okay. Arielle Scarcella just said, does she have a vagina? And then somebody just said that they saw my interview with, or my discussion with Arielle Scarcella, that she's so close. The thing is, that's why I just say Arielle Scarcella, I think, is just kind of a liar. I think that she knows, she's very much like a career YouTuber and has been doing this for a long time. She knows exactly like what to say, how long to make her videos, how to do the kind of like clickbaity, like thumbnails. It's like, you know what I mean? People have that whole formula down and can just churn it out real quick. And I think that she's not interested in going too far. She's built a niche and she's going to stay within that niche. And again, it's a lot of these like people who have been involved in the LGBTQ community for so long, they're totally not willing to fully alienate that group, you know? So they'll sit there and be edgy and on the edge, but they know like what the limit is. And I think that she knows, like, you know, she has a lot of trans identifying friends and they can just sit there and speak out of both sides of their mouth and then get like points on, you know, from both sides.
Preference. Please don't call it a genital preference. It's a sexual orientation.
Exactly. So
I don't prefer vagina. I don't like.
So when you're saying sexual orientations, you are referring to who you are attracted to.
Correct.
When you are saying that you do not have a preference for that genital portion, that is labeled as genital preference.
That's your label. That's not my label.
Sorry, would you mind if I finish? Sorry. So trans women, what the question is that's gender. It doesn't matter whether they've gone.
My experience.
I just
of
don't
how
understand.
somebody experiences themselves.
Yeah,
but don't take away my experience.
As
how I see myself as a lesbian. That's what this means to me.
Yeah, it's different than someone saying, "Oh, that's not a real woman. I don't want to date."
I never said that.
Yeah, that's different.
You hear what she said?
But someone just not had no.
So the lady was the purple haired lady was just like, oh, you know, it's not like saying like, oh, that's not a real woman, I wouldn't date her. And Arielle just said, I never said that. So she's not saying that it's not a real woman. She's just saying I have a genital, like I only want vagina. But she is basically saying that she has a genital preference because she's saying that she doesn't mind dating men as long as they have like a fake vagina. That's not a vagina, Arielle. Like to sort of degrade and diminish what a vagina is in this exquisite, complex organ, and to sit there and say that, oh, as long as a man inverts his penis and creates a hole, a cavity, that's a vagina, that doesn't do any of the same stuff that a vagina does.
Attracted. I don't think that's a problem.
Trans women are trans women, and trans women can be many different
I don't think
stages in their life.
I don't think it's nice either to just say trans women are trans women instead of.
But they are.
Well, they are, but they are also
if a trans woman is a woman.
But Arielle, you're sitting there arguing, saying that lesbians don't do dick, lesbians are attracted to other females, but you just said that you would sleep with a trans-identifying male if he got bottom surgery. I don't fucking get it.
And then I can be a trans woman as a woman?
No, but
trans, you're taking
woman is an umbrella term.
I don't agree with that, though.
Well, trans is a category of women.
I don't agree with that.
You could be a blown.
Would you?
Currently, like I would say that I have a genital preference, but I would never rule anything out. Like I've dated non-binary people. I wouldn't rule out dating anyone who's trans. I think I'm also like a very progressive and open-minded.
I don't agree. Me being closed-minded. And I don't think you can, I'm just saying, like, I'm not closed-minded because I have a sexual orientation that's monosexual.
But you just said you would date men. You just said you would date some men. I thought you elaborated on it more at one point.
Date a trans woman.
Bullshit. Well, I guess. Yeah. Well.
Oh, Helena, really? I didn't know that. That's crazy. Oh, Richard! So Rika Ile Abir is Richard Adamene. Richard, I just want to tell you again, I'm so proud of you for you guys going up and getting that bill passed. Like, good for you. Really, really proud of you. Thank you for your work. And thank you for, you know, like standing up and doing the right thing. So proud of you.
Yeah, you're surprised, right? Yeah. See, a lot of people don't know. I mean, does she have a vagina? I don't like.
That's a genital preference, not.
Disgusting to say genital preference. Please don't.
Right, but then it's like, but then the fake outrage because someone said genital preference, and it's like, what are you talking about? All right, here we go. Hold on for 1 second. Let's see. So you know, it's like it's just speaking out of every side of their mouth. Hold on, I gotta find. What's my sexuality? Ooh. Let's look at this.
Head and neck cancer.
Cancer.
No, yeah, Ella, you are another one, just like Vanessa, who has always been down. But I just meant like the you know, the community as a whole. But no, Ella Androphobia is somebody who has always stood up and done the right thing and held the line. And you also deserve your credit for sure. Like you two together were always, I felt like, you know, stayed really true. And I was, you know, grateful for that.
When you have cancer, it can define who you are. Proton therapy attacks your cancer.
I'm gonna answer the most frequent question I get. Marcus, what is your sexuality? Well, I'm gay. This is probably not a big surprise to many of you because why else would you ask constantly?
So we have a woman who claims to be based, who claims to care about, you know, standing up for a trans identity, you know, for the LGB. So anybody who's gay, lesbian, or bisexual, take note, who thinks that this person is on your side. This is a woman who fetishizes gay men and who poses as a gay man and who, you know, expects gay men to accept this as legitimate, right? So for her, she's allowed to call herself gay. And then we're going to go watch her rant about trans-identified females who aren't Marcus Dib, who are on Grindr, and call them delusional. You are such a hypocrite, miss. But let's hear more.
What's my sexuality? I think people ask questions like that because they know the person is not straight and they just want them to confirm it.
You are straight.
Transsexualism, transitioning, and sexuality are two very different things. But in this video, I'm gonna go in depth and talk a little bit about my journey with my sexuality. Growing up, I was friends with both boys and girls. And when puberty hits, it's of course natural for the two sexes to separate, and the boys are friends with boys and the girls are friends with girls. So of course I was pushed to the girls' side, and I think deep down, without being aware of it, that made me dysphoric. So I think my coping mechanism with that was to find a way to become different than these girls. The way I did that was, if they talked about boys, being in love with boys, I could not relate, and I developed crushes on girls instead. In other words, I became a lesbian so I can feel different from girls. It's so stupid because you don't become any less of a girl just because you're a girl liking girls. But my 13, 13-year-old self was thinking that way. So I think the dysphoria I had at the time was a tiny bit alleviated by identifying with a lesbian, because then I could not relate to the other girls, and that made me feel a little bit good. I became a butch lesbian and was like really into that label for a couple of years.
Okay, this is so interesting. And I've talked about this before. A lot of people who, and I'm not saying everybody, but I've noticed a phenomenon of people getting on cross-sex hormones and their sexuality reversing. So Dylan Mulvaney talked about after being on estrogen for a while, for the first time, he started to have sexual attraction to women. Buck Angel's another one who was a butch lesbian prior to getting on cross-sex hormones, and then gets on cross-sex hormones and now is having sex with men. You know, she's still married women, but you're not having recreational sex with men if you're not attracted to men. It doesn't make any sense. Right? You know, and now we have the example of like Carol, for example, who was a butch lesbian who got on testosterone and who remained attracted to women. So I'm not saying that it happens every single time, but I notice it more and more where people get on cross-sex hormones and their sexuality, whatever it is, flips. It was Kat. Anyone remembers Kat Cattinson? Kat Cattinson is a heterosexual woman who identified as a trans man. I have a 2-part interview with Kat Cattinson way back when. She's a trans-identified, she's a detransitioned, you know, formally identified as trans female who is sexually attracted to men. And she talked about that when she had gotten on testosterone, for the first time, she started to experience sexual attraction to women. And she said that really surprised her because she had never felt that way before. So I just think it's something interesting to point out.
But I always felt like there was something missing. Like, this isn't enough. 15, 16, I just struggled with my identity a lot. I did not know what it was. I've always had a problem with lack of inner peace. It was going crazy when I was growing up. And that is, with other words, dysphoria. When I was around 15, I remember...
I always struggle with a lack of inner peace, and that is, in other words, dysphoria. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. So, like, if I'm going through like some anxiety issues and again, here's the hypocrisy. You sit there and say that gender dysphoria is this very specific thing that only some people experience and understand, and that other people just have other issues that are going on, and it's not just because you're depressed or because you're anxious and they think that transitioning is going to help them. But you're talking about how you had this lack of inner peace, and then you transition and now it made you feel better. And that's exactly what she dunks on other people for basically claiming. So it's like a mental health remedy. It's a very expensive, very hugely costly placebo. This is a placebo effect, Marcus. And again, and it's like, it's, you know, it's the law of diminishing returns. It's like at first this huge change to finally to be able to like be somebody else in the world has such a euphoric effect on people who are already not happy with who they are. Now they get to control so many things and it feels good, right? But over time, it's like there's only so long that fully cuts it. So they need to keep, you know, and that's why I think for some of these people, these true trans people, it's so important for them to control the narrative. It's all about control. It's all about, no. It's what we say that it is. Listen to our voices, because all of a sudden, it's like the thing that got them all the attention, all the extra special attention, the being trans, and that's what it was supposed to do, and give them all the control about controlling the narrative, was being too democratized. Too many people now had their hands in the pot, and they were speaking, and they were changing, and it was just kind of like, no, stop it. That's not right. It's what we say. Don't listen to those people. It's what we say. Hey, that's annoying. Knock it off. Right? It's like they're just mad that other people got to come and speak. And it's like, whereas before everybody was listening to them and so amazed by them. And then, you know, they became old hat after a while.
Being in like a drama thing with two girls who both wanted to...
Hi, this is Mark Barton saying
Yeah, Richard says gender dysphoria is a self-diagnosis. It's self-diagnosis, not a legit diagnosis. It's like the only like condition where it's like doctors just got to take your word for it. That there's no real like metric for you know, evaluating it.
Have a relationship with me.
Yeah, she totally looks like a woman.
They were kind of like
she's totally
having
feminine.
a competition, like who can get me, and that was
gender dysphoria survivor. Also, it's like, try to work out. You're sitting there, you're shooting testosterone, and you still have no muscle mass. Like, are you like trying to not move at all. It's like if you're shooting, testosterone is a huge muscle bulk thing, right? It's like you've really got to not be trying to like not have put on literally any muscle. I feel like just even like a daily routine, if you're not like completely sedentary, you would like develop some muscle. But like, man, she's really got to be like not doing anything. You want to look masculine, go work out or something.
It was a very great thing to experience because I felt like a boy. This is what girls are doing over boys, not so much as over girls. I became naturally more masculine with how I looked. The first gender dysphoric experience that I was certain it was that was when I was...
I mean, Sweet Tea Monster says gender sex dysphoria is definitely real. It's a form of body dysmorphophobia. You mean dysmorphia? Dysmorphophobia would be a phobia of dysmorphia. It doesn't make you trans though. I don't know. I disagree. I think it's sort of like, I think that people, they have this sort of like discomfort in their body, and then because of external factors that like teach them about things like trans and propose the idea of trans, they latch on. I think it has more to do like with obsessive compulsive and then just like body dysmorphia in general, right? Body dysmorphia, you don't like your body, which is a lot of people, and it's like I think it's just like a whole clusterfuck of different things. And I think that they have to have the idea kind of like presented to them, and then they latch on to that's what the issue is. If I could just do that, and they start to obsess over and ruminate, right? And I think that it's like they just decide, and I think the reason why before trans women were dominated by gay men, by, like gay men, and then like, well, later cross-dressers because of their own sexual paraphilias. But gay men is because, a lot of these gay men were basically told or felt that, oh, if only I were a woman, I could have the men that I want. So they start to obsess and ruminate on, oh God, if I could have just been a woman, I could have this man love me the way I see these men loving the women that they go after. Right? It's men who didn't just want gay men. It's gay men who didn't want gay men, who wanted straight men, who wanted to be loved by a straight man the way they see straight men loving women, and that's what, they wanted to be whatever the men wanted them to be. That's why I also think that homosexual transsexuals are more likely to get bottom surgery because they're transitioning because they want to be what men want them to be, right? Because they're attracted to men and they want to become what they need to become to get the men to love them. So they're not doing it for their own sexual gratification. They're not transitioning it's almost a form of self-harm, right? It's a form of self-harm, and they're doing it for the sexual gratification of somebody else. Whereas an autogynephile typically keeps their penis because they're transitioning for their own sexual gratification. And what's the point if they're going to, destroy their genitals, right? And then I think that, there's some other people like Bruce Jenner who are AGP who do go all the way just so that like they could prove, and because they got really mentally ill, and because I think it was early on enough and we hadn't heard from enough detransitioners, and he was really sold the lie that, oh, you're still going to be able to have an orgasm, it's still going to all be the same, and and it's going to be like a real vagina we're going to make for you. And unfortunately, a lot of people accidentally bought into that.
15 or 16, I can't remember, and I had to buy new pants, jeans, and
Mario Ciala 900, sorry if I just butchered that, says, I don't dislike Marcus as a person. I think she has a lot of self-image issues. I know a lot of trans-identified have eating disorders. It's just another way to self-mutilate. I don't know this person, so I don't really have, there's other trans people who I fully disagree with, who I would prefer to spend time, who like just based off of what I can see of their personality, I would probably be more drawn to. I personally find Marcus really annoying just because of like the contradictions are so bizarre and kind of obnoxious, and she's not very palatable for me. but I'm not saying that like she's completely unlikable. You know, I'm sure, and I always say this again, and that's why it's important that we say it again and again. It's not about hate. We've got to separate this idea that being gender critical or critical of transgender ideology has anything to do with hating trans people or hating the individuals. You know, a lot of women rightfully hate some of the things that trans people do, and they hate certain trans people because there are certain trans people who are loathsome, you know, who are ghoulish and do horrific things, you know. But it's really more, again, it's not rooted in hate. And that's why, and I think because of people still internalize this idea that being gender critical is hateful, that's why they end up clinging to the true trans life raft. So they could be like, well, see, I don't actually hate people. It's like, sweetheart, you never needed to prove that to begin with, because it has nothing to do with hate. You know what I mean? We don't hate trans people either. That was never the point. We never even cared until they made it our problem, until they started to infringe on our rights. Then we had to step up. You know, we've got to stop over justifying that we're not hateful, because it causes us to then seep into these other like side agendas, like the true trans stuff, because, you know, we want to keep trying to prove that we're not hateful. And it's not hateful to be gender critical. There's nothing inherently hateful about it. And we don't need to keep, you know, trying to like prove ourselves over and over. I think that's really important.
Tried on girls' jeans. I remember to this day how it felt. I was crying in the dressing room, and that was my first big dysphoric experience. I shopped for men's clothes, it made me feel better, but I still didn't understand what the fuck I was doing. Anyways, fast forward, I am a trans man. This is who I am, and I never looked back. Now, figuring out this part of myself, it's like a can of worms opened. I can't remember exactly how this...
Callie says they love thinking we hate them because it feeds into a victim narrative which they can exploit. That's it, and that's all. They have to sit there and make this about hate, where it's like legitimate criticisms and concerns are now have to be categorized as hate, because that's the only way that, you know, their victim status can get them what they want. They had to be labeled as victims. Otherwise, there was never a reason to let them into women's bathrooms, right? No one was going to go for just, because he wants to be in there. But, no, if it's that he's in danger. She's in danger if she goes into it's a she, and she's a she trapped in a male body, and she goes into the men's bathroom. She's at such a risk. He's at this trans women are more of a risk in the men's bathroom than women are having men in the women's bathroom, which makes no sense. And we all need to be so concerned and sensitive to that risk that we need to, you know, undo all of our social norms and change, you know, how we organize society so that we can accommodate that. Right? That's how they got their foot in the door, was with this whole idea of the trans genocide, and trans black women are dying every 5 seconds, and and it's like,
it was kind of a transition.
Apparently, what was it? Aja the Empress shared a fact. I think they said that there was more criminals, more trans-identified males who are locked up in the British prison system for sexual offenses than there have been murders of trans-identified males for like the last decade, I think. So there's a higher number. So apparently this is the biggest victim class, and they say these are the least likely to victimize other people. So they like claim that they're at once the safest group of people to be around, and they're the most likely to be victimized. Then why is it that there are more of them, more trans women who are locked up in Great Britain for sexual offenses against other people than there have been murders of trans-identifying people within like the past 10 years or something like that? There is no, the answer to that is there is no crisis. There never was, okay? It was all just a way to go and socially engineer a new, you know, framework of society.
Started becoming attracted to guys, only certain guys like hot celebrities, guys at my work. From that moment, I identified as I hate the word identify. From that moment, I was a bisexual. But over the years, I started to become less and less attracted to girls, and I remember not that long ago, I was stuck with this. I'm not attracted
Yeah, and that's
physically.
always a good question. So A3 says, so when Marcus goes to the hospital or jail, she would go to the men's section. Yeah, Marcus, that's a good question. Hey, Marcus. If Marcus, hey, Marcus Dib, if you happen to listen to this, that's a good question. You know, where would you go if you got locked up? I'd love to know. And anybody who hasn't already, after you watch this, if you want to watch something else, go look up my videos with Hakeem, who's locked up in a men's prison. That's the type of men that she would get locked up with. He's fucking jacked. He's like 6'3". His arms are like the size of my leg. And he's like incredibly athletic, and he's tatted up. He's got like West Philly Goon tattooed on his throat. He's got he's got like face tattoos, like all kinds of shit. Like, these are the type of men you would get locked up with. These aren't your little like Twinkie, like, you know, performing arts, liberal arts dudes, soy boys that you've been around. Shit gets real. Shit gets real, my love. So it's like, you know, but we know the answer to that. There's a reason why these trans-identified females are not clamoring to be in the men's prisons.
Sexually to girls, but I want to be romantically involved with them. And the opposite with men, I'm physically and
Well, I like tuned. I'm like seeing her playing her stuff, and I'm like tuning her out, and I'm like listening. So she's bisexual. So she wants romantic relationships with women, but wants to have sex with men. We are like really in a fucking weird timeline, aren't we? Like, why was I born now? Really? Why couldn't I have been born like during like the post-Civil War era, or like some other great time in like American? Why is it this some weird bullshit timeline that I fucking had to be a part? Come on.
attracted to men, but I couldn't be in a relationship with them. I have a feeling I'm not the only one thinking this way, but it's absolutely stupid. I'm only joking, but it's kind of like internalized homophobia. I can't date guys. I can't have a boyfriend. That's weird. I can't be a man liking men.
My own
and
life.
I was stuck with that for quite a while. Until I realized, no, this is not how sexuality works. I am just trying to get used to the idea that...
Wait, what the fuck? She's trying to say that she tried to repress her homosexuality. Well, come on, bro, stop. Marcus Dib, and I'm saying, if you, rather than like report my video and have my channel taken down, you know, how about instead of that, why don't you and I debate? I would love to hear from you. Marcus Dib, this is my formal invitation to debate. I'd love to hear from you, because, man, you've got some real colorful ideas. Bro, so she's trying to say, come on. She's trying to say that she is like, as some like, that like, because she had internalized homophobia, she like couldn't admit that she was attracted to men. And tried to force herself to be attracted to women, but then had to admit that she's truly a gay man and like live her truth. Bro, like, god damn it. How much attention do you guys need? It's so dumb.
I'm not gonna be in a relationship with a woman. I thought all my life I would, but no, this is not me. I'm a feminine man. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not gonna pretend to be...
So this is like as if like it was a guy coming out as gay and like, you know, oh my god, come on.
Masculine like certain other trans guys on YouTube, because it's not gonna confirm my gender identity. Gender and gender expressions are two different things.
Whoa. You have videos where you say gender identity is not a real thing. Oh, this girl is nutty.
Take notes, non-binary people. I
She
express
hates
myself
non-binary
feminine,
people.
but I am a man. I'm sure of this because I tried living as a girl for 15
Yeah. Alpha Gay says it's internalized heterophobia, bro. No, it probably is internalized heterophobia. It's like they've gotten so brainwashed to thinking that just being like a normal, these are people who need to be in the victim hierarchy so badly, right? So it's like she was so against the idea of being a heterosexual woman, but couldn't make herself be she tried to be a lesbian and just couldn't bring herself to do it because she's attracted to men. So instead of doing that, I'm going to transition to a guy, then I can be gay. Like, no, you're so right. It is. It's like an internalized heterophobia. Like, come on,
16
where
years
are
it did
we?
not work. So it didn't had anything to do with my gender. It's just I'm creative, I am sensitive, and I get emotional easily, and I have feminine qualities, and I know men who also have that, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I still have gender dysphoria, so calling me she, calling me my old name, calling me a girl, treating me like a girl, having girl parts, having a female voice, I can't do that. But I can.
So you can sit there and talk about your gender identity and this is your true gender identity and say that, it's so wrong for other people to deny your pronouns. That's all legit, but you're constantly denying other people's so-called gender identity, saying it's not real and saying that no one has to respect other people's pronouns. Here's the entitlement. Here's the, I get to do it, but you don't. You can't sit with us. There's a few of us who get to dominate everything. We're so narcissistic, so self-centered, so delusional. And we're we're like the mean girl. It's like the cool kids of the short bus. You know what I mean? It's like out of a group of clowns, they're like the special clowns.
Be a feminine man with a deep voice, no breasts. You get the point. When you hear trans guys on YouTube tell their story, talking about their childhood, for example.
They love, what are the trans guys? Trans guy or trans mask.
I think you hear quite the same story, like, I played with the boys only, I was a tomboy. These trans guys are straight. So I think the reason why it kind of took me a while to understand that I was trans was because I am naturally feminine. To this day, I have almost only female friends. I date guys. So a bio girl doing that, it's gonna take a while for that girl to understand that she's a boy. I do not have rapid onset gender dysphoria. Let me just clarify. As I said before, I've always had a very big...
Notice how she had to close her eyes to tell that cope. I do not have rapid onset gender dysphoria. Hold on, let's watch how she closes her eyes to say that, because she knows that she's lying. She can't look at you while she lies.
I do not have rapid onset gender dysphoria. Let me just clarify. As I said before, I've always had a very big lack of inner peace. I've never felt normal.
All right, this is boring. Hold on. All right, so now let's look at some of the just the hypocrisy. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Hold on. Duplicate tab. Super delusional. Come on, I hate when my internet's being slow. Here we go. All right, let's see.
I thought once I had hit all those points that...
Oh, that Brianna, I had to check the shit out of this Brianna Ivy person who sells a bunch of porn on OnlyFans. She tried to come for me because I made one comment to Buck Angel that wasn't even rude. It was just, and I did, bro, when I tell you I eviscerated that clown. And then he tried to play victim later, and he's like, one of my favorite things, or things that amuses me the most, is when people try me, and then they get all confused and act all wounded when I fucking come back for them. And it's I'm routinely underestimated, throughout my whole life. People think that I'm the one, and then I go and I fucking oops. And I'm like, bro, I'm real. I don't know what made you think that, I'm the one to try. I'm not. I never have been, and I just won't ever be. It's just, come on. And then they sit there and they play victim. Like, well, yeah. That's crazy, though, Helena, that we can't say vagina anymore on YouTube. So basically, women, because of these people...
I'm going to answer the most
it, hold on.
frequent question.
Women are
I'm going to
not...
answer...
Because of these people, women are not allowed to speak about our bodies and our health. We're not allowed to speak about but we're not allowed to say the word vagina because of these people. You know, that's so scary and sick and wrong. And this is supposed to be a feminist movement? No, this is insane. It's so sick. Hold on for 1 second. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, so he talks about how, all right, it's legit that he's a gay man, right? And he gives this like long, confusing diatribe that's supposed to explain it. None of it makes sense. I'm a lesbian trans man. And like, see, that's the thing. Like, here's the type of people that they dunk on, right? So look, like this one right here says, I'm a lesbian trans man. Yet, you know what's interesting, Marcus? That's actually more honest than you claiming to be a gay man. At least I find myself, one thing about these true trans people, actually, I find myself like almost sympathizing more with the TPAs, because at least the TPAs are more like logically consistent. And honestly, this person saying I'm a lesbian trans man at least like makes more sense. And honestly, in some ways, the TPAs can sometimes have even more benign rhetoric, because they sit there and say, oh, we don't owe you femininity, or we don't owe you. At least then you can see who's who. And it's basically saying like, you don't have to medicalize, you know? That's a less toxic like rhetoric. I mean, all of it's BS and I hate all of it, right? All of it should go. But I'm just saying, it's like, oh, they hate the they thems. All right, we got to do the pronoun things, because she's such a hypocrite with all right, here we go. Hold on. I belong in a women's prison. Hold on, okay, wait, this is funny. All right, so all right, first we're gonna listen to this. Oh no. First we're gonna do. Damn it, where's the pronouns one? I need his pronouns thing. Here, this one we have to watch. We have to watch this one, but I want to watch this other one first, because when you put them next to each other, it's just so, the hypocrisy is like so ridiculous. Oh, here's another one who I think is like a plant. See this girl right here? I called it a while ago. I watched her when she started. I remember when she only had like a few thousand followers. This person right here, I think she's like Russian. I don't know what she is. She's from New York. She was like a realtor. She came out. She's another one who's like not that bright. She's just like basically says all the same boring talking points as all of these like new anti-woke content creators. And it's like, okay, yeah, like, comment, and subscribe, blah, blah, blah. And like literally when I say like I watched her from when she first got started to basically just exploding in followers, explode over like a few month period of time. It was like every day she was getting like tens of thousands of followers. They're plants. They have to be. This person is not interesting or like has to be a plant, and she's allowed. There's certain sanctioned anti-woke takes that you're allowed to take. It's controlled opposition, I'm telling you. And of course, every time I notice one of these people who I immediately ID as a plant, they all end up, I see them later, they end up like teaming up. It's like, oh, interesting how they all got to know each other. Real interesting. No, where is the, sorry, hold on. All right, we have to look at this one, but I want you to look at the other one first just to see the hypocrisy. So I'm going to leave that there. And then we're going to, hold on. It's so annoying because he just has so many. Hold on.
I thought once I had...
How can I search within? Oh, here we go. Let's see.
Try this 10-minute morning ritual tonight to reverse signs of aging. This new powerful face-lifting wand erases wrinkles and...
No, it doesn't. All right. She hates non-binary people. Like
I
that's
have
like her
never in
favorite
my
one.
life told anyone what kind of pronouns I use. Even
Oh, really? Oh, just pay attention closely to this, and then we're gonna watch something where it super contradicts herself and just straight up lies. Just watch the lies. Just pay attention. Hold on. Yeah. So Soleil said she seemed way too experienced at creating content right from the jump. It's weird. It totally. They all of a sudden had a formula. Same thing with the one guy. It was the one guy, what's the other guy who I just did a thing on? The dude who has like the face tattoos or whatever. It's like he had like this, like, you know, no kind of formula, no formula, that out of nowhere suddenly had a YouTube formula that was like, you know, how YouTube likes things, and then starts, you know, getting a ton of subscribers out of nowhere. It's like they like recruited him. You know what I mean? It's so, it's some, yeah, oh yeah, Ty Rivera. Yeah, exactly. Ty Rivera, you look at all of his old stuff, it's just a bunch of like meandering videos of him talking about whatever. Then all of a sudden, he starts taking on these like very scripted talking points and these like, you know, the typical thumbnails that they always do. It's like they all have the same type of thumbnail. And it's like all very formulaic. And then suddenly he like starts skyrocketing. It's like, yeah. Oh yeah, Chuck, curly boy Chuck. He's so fucking cringe and so into himself. Yeah, that's another one I can't take.
never in my life told anyone what kind of pronouns I use. Even though I didn't pass for years prior to testosterone, people still called me he because they knew when I said I'm a trans guy, and when I previously said my name is Marcus, they could kind of figure out what was going on.
Does any of the, because when I told him I was a trans guy and I told him my name's Marcus, so we all have to respect your pronouns. Yeah, the one cross earring. Yeah, come on. Come on. The like haircut. She clearly looks like a woman. Like this looks like a woman. This looks like your typical, like, you know, queer, like, you know, chick. And tell me, none of this makes sense. And also, it sounds like she's slurring a little bit. Like, is she intoxicated?
Preferred pronouns is a term you hear a lot these days. Are pronouns something you have to earn or something you should demand? Well, of course it's A. And what I don't mean, and this is before you type it in the comments, what I don't mean is if you can't pass...
Generation Y, she's Danish, and she looks at Denmark. She
lives in Denmark. Should use the wrong pronouns. I don't mean it like that. You have to make an effort as a transsexual in order to earn your pronouns. The lucky thing is, all real transsexuals do make an effort because they have the condition gender dysphoria that forces them to make the effort, forces them to transition in some way. This is not a big deal. Everyone who deals with gender dysphoria, they know this and they don't have a problem with what I'm saying. The ones who do have a problem with this are the transgenders.
So people with real gender dysphoria, which none of you can ever seem to define in any kind of consistent, coherent way, but the people with the true gender dysphoria get forced to transition because it makes them. It's very interesting.
Fake trans people who use extremely weird pronouns. It's called neo-pronouns. Simser, bond self, bunny self, I think. And the list goes on and on. Just like the fake
and
gender.
It's like, you know that these like neo-pronoun people are usually like 13-year-olds who like parents don't monitor them enough and they're online and on TikTok and they're just like being, you know, experimenting and like, you know, good and goddamn well, like no one really takes that stuff seriously. And you guys love, or if they're adults, they're like super mentally ill and, you know, have a bunch of like histrionic personality disorders. And it's like, come on, you know what I mean? Like, they love to, sacrifice these, like, you know, dunk on these, like, 13-year-olds. But as if what you're doing is, like, real logical and, like, you know, isn't totally embarrassing and cringe and fake, right?
These are the people I'm talking to. You have to earn pronouns. If you make no effort at all to look like a woman, People are not going to call you she and her, and that's totally fine and justified. If you do make an effort, people will try to do it. They will slip up sometimes. That's totally natural, and you should also accept that. We all make mistakes. So what it really comes down to is this divide that's still going on with real transsexuals who just want to be left alone and live their lives, and then the fake trans people who are dominating the LGBT culture in the West. All of this can be solved with a very simple solution. It's called mutual respect. I've never been in a situation where someone is using the wrong pronouns on purpose. Is that a coincidence? Am I just lucky?
I've never been in a situation where people are using the... Actually, let's just go back and forth, right? Where they're using the wrong pronouns on purpose. Let's find out. Come on, of course. Oh, my internet is now freezing. Come on. No. My internet's freezing. Oh, here we go. All right, hold on. All right, so I'm going to go back and forth between the two just to show the hypocrisy, all right, because it's ridiculous.
Even though I talk mostly about the far left and criticize the trans movement, I also feel passionate talking about the segment of the right that doesn't understand or accept transsexuals yet. It's not often, but I do get the occasional, you will always be.
This is what this, just to be clear, please understand, this is what these true trans people are every bit as much trans privilege activists. They're just more cunning and more calculated, and they realize that they need to give a little to get what they want. And it's all about colonizing. Let me make myself big for this. Look at her face. It's all about colonizing, okay, the Republicans and the right wing. That is formally, they realized they had to break into the right wing and find a way to sneak in, and they used a bunch of, like, you know, Trojan horse rhetoric. Stop buying into it. These people are trans privilege activists. And once you let them in, it's going to be very difficult to scrub them back out. Please keep the right wing as a bastion of, like, sanity away from all of this. Don't let them infiltrate and begin to infect the way that the right wing thinks. Please, God. Please, God.
Woman comment, so let's dive into it. I was born. You will always be a woman comment, so let's dive into of the right that doesn't understand or accept transsexuals yet. It's not often, but I do get the occasional, you will always be a woman comment, so let's dive into it. I was born a physically healthy, normal girl, having XX chromosomes, estrogen as the leading gender hormone, and female body parts. But one thing was not perfectly healthy or normal. My brain. A chemical imbalance in my brain started to dominate my life. It was powerful, so powerful that even though I truly wanted to live as a girl like it was intended, I couldn't.
My mind's telling me no.
Putting that into medical terms, I was dealing with a condition called gender dysphoria. And because of that, I started to make some changes.
So what, are we just supposed to take your word for it? That there was just no other explanation? Or we don't know what you get. We're just taking her word for it. There was no choice. That's what these people said. They had gender dysphoria, and their gender dysphoria was so legit and so seriously serial that they had to transition. Don't you guys understand? This is a dangerous idea because they're saying that some people truly do have dysphoria, and their dysphoria is so serious that they have to medically transition. And it's like, anybody who wants to be trans or is like delusional enough to think they're trans, they're going to hear this and go, yeah, I'm that person. Who the fuck do you think is going to be like, oh, you know what? You're right. I'm the one who's just faking it. I'm the one who's just bullshitting everybody. No, everybody's going to be like, yeah, that's me. Because no one really understands what gender dysphoria. All these people say that they have gender dysphoria, but I really believe it's more about obsessive compulsion. They get obsessed with the idea of thinking that if they were just the other sex, their life would be better had they just been the other sex, because of these distortions and delusions about what being the other sex means, or what this impact could have, had on their lives and things like that. It's more of an obsession, and they just latch onto that idea because it's like they came across that as being the solution. But it's like, and I don't think that they even know what gender dysphoria really is. They just think that, well, I'm feeling something, and this is what it's more about what they really want. They want to be able to do these things, so they need to find a way to justify it. And it's all because I have to, because I have a medical condition, because I'm just, I'm unhappy in other things, and I've identified that this is what will probably make me happy. It's like it's an addiction. It's like people who just want to get high, want to get that hit, and I'll just feel better if I get this. Same thing with people with cosmetic surgery addictions. If I can just do this one extra nip tuck, then I'll feel better. Then I can get back to my life. If I can just be allowed to do this one thing, or it's like the incels. If only I were allowed to, have sex or have a wife, then I'll finally be happy, or whatever. It's like people who are unhappy and maladjusted, and they get in their mind that if I can just get this one thing, then it'll make all my life better, right? It's like they're all looking for a magic bullet. And of course, then it's now being, affirmed because of queer theory. I'm sure that if queer theory had not taken the world by such storm, we wouldn't have Marcus Dib. Marcus Dib would still be living as a woman. It's just that she learned about, transgenderism and stuff and transsexuals and latched on to it just like many other people did. But now is like taking a new angle about explaining her specific things so that she can be the special chosen one. But this is all social contagion. The only reason she discovered this is through social contagion, just like everyone else.
In order to alleviate the condition that was causing me so much pain, I legally changed my name, changed my entire hormonal structure in my body. I removed my breasts.
Yeah, it's so funny though. So Soleil said that, oh my God, that looks terrible. So Soleil says, she always, quote, felt different, but she also happened to present in a particularly feminine way for it appears most of her life. It's same thing with Blair White. Blair White was like your campy gay, your typical gay, but he was still a man. So many of these people, same thing with like Bruce Jenner claims that he always knew that, deep down, he always felt like he was a girl or a woman. But it's like, yeah, there's literally no evidence of that whatsoever. But again, the only way you can really sell this and you get to be legit is if you were born this way, right? So they've got to sit there and tell the lie that they've always felt this way from the time they were little. And then you interview the family, and the family's like, yeah, I guess so. I never saw any evidence of anything like this. I was really surprised, actually. It's social contagion, and they're just lying. They're lying about how it all started. It's not that, wild to imagine that some of these people are just not telling the truth.
And my reproductive system.
And just remember, if you're going to lie about who you are and mask through all of these, extreme, if you go to such extreme lengths to misrepresent to the world who you are, to lie about who you are, to pretend to be something that you're not, chances are it's not like you're going to lie, right? These people are capable of lying. In fact, these people are so capable of lying that they go to such extreme lengths to live a lie. So if they're going to lie about this, please know they're probably going to lie about just about anything.
And with those things being done, I'm now pain-free with the condition alleviated. I'm a happy person, and I have found my inner peace. What I did not change, however, is my biology. I haven't, and I will never claim otherwise. 1, because I know reality, but 2, I don't need to in order to...
You don't claim otherwise, yet you tell everybody that you're a gay man. You know your biology, and you clown somebody who says that they're a trans man who's a lesbian, who's actually being more honest. They're still lying, saying they're a trans man, but they're being more honest by saying that they're a lesbian. But you're claiming to be a gay man, so you are lying. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. Doesn't make any sense.
A happy, normal life. We now live in a world filled with possibilities. It was possible for me to change my appearance to the degree that people who don't know me, they see me as a normal guy. The people who don't know me can't tell that I have a vagina instead of a penis, can't tell that I have XX chromosomes instead of XYs. I don't need some high-tech solution in the future where you can change your biological sex, because being a biological female, living my life as a man, it's me. Me growing up as a girl and eventually growing old as a man, it's my life.
So she's literally saying that if she had the like high tech, if they had like developed the technology to actually make her biologically a man, she wouldn't want it. Because, you know, as long as people perceive her as a man, that's all. But then in another video, she's dunking on somebody who talks about how she's a trans man who gets periods. And then Marcus is like, oh, if you were a trans man who gets periods, if you had true gender dysphoria like me, you wouldn't be able to handle getting periods because it would make you so dysphoric.
I used the 10-second peanut
So, so she's ridiculous for saying that she's a trans man who gets periods, but yet it doesn't make you dysphoric that you're a trans man who has a vagina, and you're saying that you wouldn't even change that if you could. Because this is about sexual dating strategy and whatever the hell else. Again, they want to preserve their genitalia. That's what it is. It's about your sexual dimorphism. There's no reason that we would even have categories men and women if it weren't for the fact that we are a sexually dimorphic species. It has to do with sexual reproduction. Otherwise, there's no reason to segregate or categorize people. Like, what are you talking about? Bro, it just makes no sense. And I get so aggravated at these fake gender criticals who are like, they're on our side. Why are you going after they have true transsexuals and they agree with us and they're fighting on the same fight. No, the fuck they're not. This is all a PR cleanup. It's a PR cleanup to distance themselves from like the most bizarre and goofy ones because they realized that it was those people who were garnering all the bad press for the trans crew. That it was like the weirdos with the green hair who were like schizophrenic and super mentally ill with all the stupid piercings. That like, you know, it was those people that were the problem. And it's all a PR cleanup so they can actually protect transgenderism. And they want to call it a different name. Oh, we're transsexuals. Like, bro, none of it makes sense. How are you a transsexual if you still have a vagina? How does that make you a transsexual? That's my question too. How are you a transsexual if you still have a vagina? Your primary sex characteristics have to do with your genitalia. You still have female genitalia, then you're not a transsexual based on what transsexual would typically mean on a logical term. They have no coherent definition. So they all claim to be transsexuals, true transsexuals, yet they don't go and actually really change anything significant. They take some, they work on some secondary sex characteristic stuff and call it a day. Yet they're more committed to their transition. Bro, none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense.
And it's my story. And I don't wish that I was someone else. The things about my biology that I can't change, it's not something that you all can see. You can't see my chromosomes. And if you're not some hot dude, you're not going to see my vagina. All you see is a young man. Some conservatives hold the opinion that pronouns are biological based.
Pronouns are designed to differentiate between men and women, and that transgender women, and that anything that attempts to overcome that argument is obfuscation rather than clarification.
There are plenty
of
men, they look and sound completely as women, and they're...
Did I just freeze for a second? Hold on. This is important because he's sitting, oh my God, he's saying that pronouns are not about biology, okay? Just listen.
Biological based.
Pronouns are designed to differentiate between men and women, and that transgender women are not biological women, and that
biological based.
Pronouns are designed.
He said that pronouns are not biological based. Hold on.
You're not going to see my vagina. All you see is a young man. Some conservatives hold the opinion that pronouns are biological based.
Pronouns are designed to differentiate between men and women, and that transgender women are not biological women, and that anything that attempts to overcome that argument is obfuscation rather than clarification.
There are plenty of cases where biological men, they look and sound completely as women, and therefore it wouldn't make sense to call them he, even though it's the biological truth. This is where common sense.
It wouldn't make sense to call a man he because he grew his hair out and is wearing makeup. Marcus, is that what I'm getting at? So you're basically saying that what, butch lesbians, because they don't perform femininity the way that we see on TV, they should be called what, he, him, so that makes them men? I thought you were saying that that's not how that works and you have to be some special, none of it makes sense, bro, none of it.
Is lacking. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Pronouns are based in...
So we should call you she, her, because you look like a woman. We know that you're a woman. We should call you she, her then, right? You're making a really good argument for why we should not be using your preferred pronouns.
Secondary sex characteristics. Therefore, if a person did a great job transitioning physically, you would automatically in your own head...
She said, I like how she's like speaking for us. God damn it, hold on.
Prefer. You know what I mean, I hate using that. My point is, if you're conservative, it's okay to use the pronouns of the gender the person has transitioned to. Because most of the time, that is common sense, which conservatives claim to follow and always use. Don't worry, you don't become a liberal by doing this. No, but I do see some conservatives who are trying to force themselves into using the wrong pronouns or the biological pronouns of transsexuals.
God damn it.
And you can just tell it's forced.
I'm not comfortable using the she pronoun.
And their brain, they want to use the pronouns of the gender the person transitioned to instead of just their biological sex. And I don't think you should fight.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. My computer is like being so slow. Hold on. Okay. Let me just rewind that. It just went full screen and then everything freaked out. So annoying. So this is important though, just to like expose her hypocrisy.
The pronouns of the gender.
Hold on. Here we go. She's saying that pronouns are supposed to be based on secondary sex characteristics. Interesting how they always manage to like fashion all of the like, you know, definitions to fit exactly what they want.
Quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Pronouns are based in secondary sex characteristics. Therefore, if a person did a great job transitioning physically, you would automatically in your own head give the person the pronouns that they prefer. You know what I mean, I hate using that. My point is, if you're conservative, it's okay to use the pronouns of the gender the person has transitioned to. Because most...
So anybody who's conservative and who still roots for these people, wake the hell up. Wake the hell up. I'm so tired of these fake ass conservatives who claim conservative in my comments section, but then are like, well, no, I actually really like Buck and Blair. I think that, you know, they got a good head on their shoulders. This is what this is about. This is about colonizing queer theory, because make no mistake, this is all queer theory. I don't know why we pretend like this is somehow separate from queer theory. Transgenderism is inseparable from queer theory. That's what created this. And this is the whole true trans thing is about colonizing the right-wing thought, conservative thought. And look at her admonishing conservatives. You're not a conservative. You're a queer theorist who needs to be this so extra super duper special, right? You weren't special enough among the sea of the other trans people over on the left wing. So now you got to sit here and pretend to be right wing, you know, maybe because you like the style or whatever, and then demand that everybody think the way you want them to think, a way that accommodates you.
The time, that is common sense, which conservatives claim to follow and always use. Don't worry, you don't become a liberal by doing this. No, but I do see some conservatives who are trying to force themselves into using the wrong pronouns or the biological pronouns.
So according to Marcus Dib, calling people sex-based pronouns are wrong pronouns. The only right pronouns is calling people based off of like what they look like they're trying to be.
Of transsexuals, and you can just tell it's forced.
I'm not comfortable using the she pronoun.
And their brain, they want to use the pronouns of the gender the person transitioned to instead of just their biological sex. And I don't think you should fight that. I think that's embarrassing. And actually, if you're trying to use the...
There is nothing embarrassing about calling a woman she, her. I'm not embarrassed. Nobody should be embarrassed. You're embarrassing, Marcus. Your whole nonsensical everything is an embarrassment. How can you say this stuff and take yourself seriously? And the level of smugness, the little smug attitude, that's what's embarrassing. No, we're not embarrassed. We're not embarrassed for adhering to reality and safeguarding of women and children. Yeah, I will never be shamed about that. Got me effed up.
Wrong pronouns and do something unnatural on purpose, you're no better than the far left that you're criticizing because they also use pronouns that doesn't make sense.
I'm Cody. Pronouns he, him, hers, or she, them, hers, or really any male pronouns that aren't she, her, hers.
My condition, gender dysphoria, can't thrive in the reality that even though I'm a biological female, everyone around me see me as a man. The choices I made to live my life as a man tricked.
Everyone around me sees me as a man. Can we get like a show of hands for how many people see this girl as a man? Anybody? Anybody? Hey, gay men in the chat. Gay men, you guys going after this? Is this who you would like go after? You guys getting hard for her? Yeah, I don't think so, miss.
Gender dysphoria into going away. And that's all I need. That is all I need. Now, honestly, what is the big deal of all this? Why have a problem with it? If you're telling me you will always be a woman with the intentions of reminding me of how biology and facts work.
I know. Gay men have like all logged off by now. Cricket.
It's totally fine. But if you're telling me you will always be a woman because you're mean, you're undermining the hard work I had to...
So she's just parroting pretty much exactly what Buck Angel says. She said the only reason that you would use female pronouns for me, a woman, is because you're mean. Yet they sit there and they clown other people relentlessly. Relentless. So it's okay for them to do it, but God forbid if you call them like she, her. It makes no sense.
To get rid of pain, unbearable pain. You're an asshole. I don't use transphobic a lot. I don't use all these fancy new words that the community want me to use. We already have plenty of words like asshole. But the key is...
What she's saying is that you're transphobic. She just, realizes, she's trying to realize how, like, what a hypocrite she sounds like. But she's trying to say that you guys are transphobes.
Intentions. What are your intentions? And sometimes your opinions and your intentions, they can differ. An example of this is how the modern LGBT community's opinions are, we need to fight for acceptance in society, but their intentions are to change fundamentally how society looks like. Their intentions behind the we're loving and tolerant opinions are to exclude and shame individuals who disagree with them.
That's your whole shtick. That's your entire shtick. That's like what you, let's take a look. And he loves going after these trans-identified males. Loves going after trans-identified males. Oh, here we go. Let's hear him hear her. I'm sorry. Hear her go be a complete fucking hypocrite.
Sold out 30 times, always packed.
A lot of y'all got really upset about a trans woman being on Grindr and liking it.
Oh, here we go.
And I are both on Grindr.
This one. This is the one. The hypocrisy is crazy in this.
A lot of y'all got really upset about a trans woman being on Grindr and liking it.
My partner and I are both on Grindr. We have not gotten hit on, like, at all.
So that woman who just spoke clearly has a testosterone affected voice. So it sounds like she's doing almost as much as Marcus to so-called transition. Oh, and the first guy who talks, oh my God. Also, and then he's going to sit there, or she's going to sit there and talk about how trans-identified males should not be on Grindr. Trans women don't belong on Grindr because they're actually women. But then also trans-identified females, so trans men who she doesn't think are up to par also don't belong on Grindr. But I guess you do, right, Marcus? But this first of all, trans-identified women, trans-identified males are exactly who belong on Grindr because they're gay men, or at least a lot of them are. You know, at least the ones who are searching for men are. They're men. They belong more on Grindr than you do, my love. And listen to this one, trans-identified male's voice is like so, it's like stunningly cringe.
Grindr is a hookup app for gay men. Well, it used to be. Now we see trans women use Grindr and also trans men, the real and the fake ones, but especially the fake ones. The women on testosterone, who got septum piercings, who are all communists and trans activists. And what I'm going to talk about today is, why are trans women on Grindr when they want to live their lives as if they were women? And why...
No, Buck Angel sounds like Patty and Selma from The Simpsons. Like, Buck Angel sounds like your typical, like, aunt who smokes, like, 6 packs a day. The smugness, it's like, it's so smug and, like, arrogant, you know. Oh, there's these trans women who are on Grindr. Like, yeah, they belong on Grindr more than you. And these trans men and the fake trans men and real trans men. Like, what? Huh?
These women on Grindr, even though they're women. I'm gonna assume that this person is a real trans guy, but what he's saying in this video is so cringe. Let's watch.
Grindr is technically a gay app for gay men, but I mean, they'll let anybody on. Like the other day, I actually saw your mom on there. So, I mean, they let her on.
This comeback doesn't make any sense. You're trying to be disrespectful to someone by being disrespectful towards the girls who are on Grindr, which you claim to support. Make it make sense. It's a valid question to be like, why are girls on the only gay dating app that exists?
Why are you, a girl, calling yourself a gay man? Gay men, please take note. These people are not your allies. Lesbian women, take note. These people are not your allies. The LGB, take note. These are not your allies. There's no logical sense at all. This is a woman who calls herself a gay man, and it's okay for her to do it, but then she dunks on other people who are doing the same thing she does, because it's like, again, it draws too much. When there's too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen, it causes too many problems, right? Too many cooks in the kitchen, and she wants to clear it out. But he's not giving many convincing arguments as to why she belongs in there, but no one else does.
Moving on, this is a trans woman, I think. And this person actually talks like this in other videos, so this person is not a troll, I assume.
A lot of y'all got really upset about a trans woman being on Grindr and liking it. And I've been on and off Grindr for like a decade at this point. Do I love being on Grindr?
This dude looks so much more masculine than you do, Mark. I would be way more interested, like I'd probably be more naturally attracted to this man who my like brain is registering as a man, just albeit in makeup, than you, right? Like, this is a dude, I'm sorry, but what fuck voice is this? Does this guy think that this voice, like, what is this voice though? It's like, what are you doing? It's like, what? Are you having a stroke? Like, should we call like some paramedics?
Not a troll, I assume.
A lot of y'all got really upset about a trans woman being on Grindr and liking it. And I've been on and off Grindr for like a decade at this point. Do I love being on Grindr? No. Is it where I can find the densest population of people who are actually interested in and attracted to me? Yes. And sure, at this point, it's mostly habit and something that I also have a constant conversation with myself about. But I also keep coming back because it has what I'm looking for.
Anyone notice that O in the chat? Yeah, and there's also a reason why this dude probably gets more hits off Grindr than the trans-identified females, because he at least has what the men are looking for more than these other dudes, even if they don't love the way he dresses. But also this person O in the chat is having like a total like mental breakdown. Here, like, let's ask O to the person O in the chat. I wonder who you, like, what your actual handle is. It seems like a sock puppet. Is that Marcus? Is that you? Is that you, Marcus? Like, it might be, because I did tag him, or I did tag her in a few things. But, yeah. Oh, why don't you, here, if you would, my darling, in the chat, would you please explain to us what is a true transsexual? And I want a very clear definition that is, very objective, clear, measurable, that is straightforward, and that we can apply to every situation. Okay, so would you do that for us? A clear definition of what a true transsexual is and how they're different from these trans trenders once you've done that.
Short, the app is not exclusively for gay men. And I'm on there because it's working.
Well, it's working out for you because you're a biological male, and Grindr is for gay men, and a gay man is a biological man attracted to other males. Having sex with transvestites is actually pretty common within the gay community. And I know a transvestite is not the same as a trans woman. However, if the person hasn't transitioned yet, no matter if they're a fake or a real trans woman, a horny man on Grindr wouldn't care about the distinction. I'm just saying. I think it makes sense for trans women, even the real ones, to be on Grindr. Only if they want to, of course. That's a given. Because no matter what, they're biological men, and if they want to have sex with other biological men, Grindr is a great place to start. Of course, it gets a little bit complicated if the trans woman got breast implants, and especially the surgery down there. And before you say it's a problem that gay men on Grindr will see these trans women as a fetish and only as a fetish, that's how the app works. That's how it works for every person on the app. What I'm trying to say is you won't necessarily find true love on Grindr, but you will find a lot of eggplants. If the gay men socially perceive these trans women as women, they won't get any offers. So it's up to the trans woman what she wants to do. Delete the app or stay and find one who do want to sleep with her. But again, it's not about finding your future husband on there, so... Well, what about biological women? Should they be on Grindr? First, let's hear this woman's experience on Grindr.
My partner and I are both on Grindr. We have not gotten hit on, at all. Usually we get hit on fairly regularly. We're from Boston. Pretty much the minute I open that app, I have people messaging me. A lot of them are chasers, which isn't great, but there is legitimate interest, and it is not hard for me to make connections on that app.
So this woman is dating another trans-identified female who, I guess they're both medicalizing, and they're trolling for men on the internet. It's like, can we bring back just some sexual morality? Is everybody so porn addicted? Porn is destroying. It is destroying our world, and it's making everyone miserable. And it's awful. What a pestilence pornography is.
Did you know that there's nothing wrong with being a chaser and you're actually shaming people for having a sexual preference, which makes you look really hypocritical? It also makes you sound like a woman because you want to be treated as a princess. Honey, if you're on a hookup app for gay men, you're going to be treated as if you were a man. What is the problem? You force yourself to...
There's nothing wrong with being a chaser, because now he's trying to say that a gamp is a legitimate sexuality, as if it's not some sort of porn fueled, porn fueled paraphilia. But yeah, go off, sis.
Their space, and then you complain about how you get treated. To the people who don't know, a chaser is usually a man only attracted to trans women. They're usually...
I know. I feel like she's desperately trying to grow a beard. The fact that you would even leave those few hairs on the bottom, let it go. It might not happen for you, and that's okay. Ew.
Very vocal about it, and some of them are creeps. I do have a problem with this term because I feel like anyone who wants to date a trans person and knows it is apparently a chaser and a creep. What she just said is something that I hear a lot from fake trans men. They demand to be involved in gay spaces, yet treated as women whenever it suits them.
Hi, I'm Nicole Huck.
I don't know how old Marcus is. I was trying to look it up, but I didn't find it.
Compare that to like an explicitly gay, queer town where the grinder like should be hopping and it is completely dead. My partner has tried messaging people and people have like flat out been like, no, like I don't want to hook up with you. I also haven't gotten hit on in person here, like at all.
I love how open you are with this.
Freud Gherkin Lover says she is 24 years old. Yeah, that's about what, like the like super self-righteous, like self-assured arrogance definitely is like around 24, where it's like she's like the elder of like teenagers, you know what I mean? And like has been in like the adult world for a couple of years, so now she like corners the market on like, you know, everything.
Honest, I don't understand why you got so many offers in another city.
And this is where the transphobia really comes in, is that my partner, who passes for cis in a way that I don't, is, you know.
The voice makes me so sad. The voice just like, it to me, it's like seeing scars all over their bodies. It's like you're literally hearing the damage that these toxins, these poisons have done. How that they, you know, they've poisoned themselves and you're just hearing the damage to their body. And it's just, it's really sad.
Like a bear is getting hit on a ton. Like men are all over him in person. And so like the contrast between how hard he's being flirted with in person versus how dead Grindr is very much like, oh, you think he's hot when you think he is this specific thing, but as soon as you realize that he doesn't have a penis, you don't actually want him.
What turns other people on has nothing to do with transphobia. It has nothing to do with any phobia or racism. And if I'm wrong, you could argue it's homophobic for a straight man not wanting to suck an eggplant, or it's racist for a black woman not wanting to sleep with a white man. But it's not. A trans man, meaning a biological woman, can pass so well in society that gay men, who are only attracted to men, are attracted to the trans man. But the fact that trans men don't have eggplants is a deal breaker for gay men. If you think that's hard to comprehend, you're exposing yourself as a homophobe. But what's new?
So why are you calling yourself a gay man? What are you talking about? Like they're trying to, like they're only based when they're talking about other people, but then when it comes to them, they get all the special privileges.
Activism is filled with homophobia. You make it seem like the only thing that's important here is how your boyfriend looks on the outside with clothes on. Not only do you think other people should think what your boyfriend has in between his legs is irrelevant. Do you have any idea how disgusting you sound? I mean, I know the answer to that. Of course you do. Because according to you, this has nothing to do with other people, how they feel, what they're attracted to, what they're into, respecting what they're into. It should only be about you, and in this case, also your boyfriend. And I think the reason why that is, your boyfriend is most likely a real transsexual, but you're not. So you need him in your little game, because that also benefits you, somehow. You want to control other people because it makes you feel good.
So, the fact that you're even calling that this woman's girlfriend, these two lesbians, you're saying, oh, your boyfriend is a real transsexual, but you're not. This woman clearly is taking testosterone. So what are you, Marcus? You talk about how you still have a vagina and you wouldn't change that even if you could. How do you get to call yourself a true transsexual? An actual transsexual? How does that make any sense, miss? I'm serious. If you want to talk, let's do it. Like, I'm so down to debate you. I know I won't hear from you, but I'm just saying. I'm throwing it out
And that's
there.
the most important thing in the world.
It feels like icky. It feels kind of violent. It feels... I don't know, insidious, I guess, is really the word I keep coming back to.
I'm not even going to comment on that. It's just insane. Notice how her earring is a bottle of testosterone. I know that gay men love testosterone, but this will not get you any more dates. Just so you know.
I am on Grindr. Everyone been to that place? Some of you? Yeah, if you've lived any amount of your life as a woman, Grindr is not a comfortable spot to be.
Correction, if you are raised as a girl and you still want to be
No, Marcus got a radical hysterectomy, and probably because of she was probably having complications from testosterone. You know, we know that testosterone, the reason why they typically will have like a radical hysterectomy and even vaginectomy when they get on testosterone, even without getting metoidioplasty or phalloplasty, is because taking testosterone, and then, you know, our uteruses depend on estrogen for uterine health. And when you remove estrogen, it like cuts off like blood flow and other necessary components, and the uterus can go septic at that point, and it can almost kill you. So a lot of times that they will preemptively and like prophylactically do a radical hysterectomy. And, you know, then also it's like they want to get the bilateral oophorectomy, which is removal of the ovaries, so that, you know, they don't have to sit there and worry about their ovaries still producing estrogen.
as a girl, Grindr is not a safe space for you. Personally, I've been on Grindr, which was quite the experience. But listen to this, I never complained about how I was treated. I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew that gay men are different than me.
I'll get a notification that
Didn't you just give us a whole speech about how you're a gay man and how you knew that you were a gay man? Oh, but this is the reasonable trans, guys. This one is on our side. He's reasonable. It's the true transsexual. They're reality based, bro. Nothing is reality based about this guy, about this girl, or any of these people.
Like a dude who wants to fuck me 200 feet away. I'm at home in my bed. Either my roommate wants to fuck me or I'm being robbed. Like,
yet still you're on the app. I know she's a comedian and was trying to be funny, but it bothers me that these types of women are shaming the men on the app who are using the app properly. They're gay men and they want to.
She seems so like angry, and like you're talking about how, oh, you're so happy now that you transitioned, but you're just so like angry and spiteful like everybody. You don't seem like you found your inner peace yet there, Marcus.
That's how you use the app. That's why the app was created in the first place. But that's what they're shaming and
And I am gonna say it again. I hate that she. I hate that she picked the name Marcus. I hate it. I hate it. And I wish I knew her real name so that I wouldn't have to fucking keep calling this girl Marcus. But here we are.
hasn't transitioned yet, no matter if they're a fake or a real trans woman. A horny man on Grindr wouldn't care about the distinction. I'm just saying. I think it makes sense for trans women, even the real ones, to be on Grindr. Only if they want to, of course.
The real ones.
Because no matter what, they're biological men, and if they want to have sex with other biological men, Grindr is a great place to start. Of course, it gets a little bit complicated if the trans woman got breast implants, and especially the surgery down the hole. It also makes you sound like a woman because you want to be treated, which makes you look really hypocritical. Did you know that there's not...
Hold on, I like accidentally rewinded it.
No. You don't be about you, and in this case also your boyfriend. And I think the reason why that is, your boyfriend is most likely a real transsexual.
Like based on what? She's so annoying. All right, hold on.
I thought once I had hit all those points that I would...
Let's see. We'll do one more of these. I wish I had been able to get into more of her hypocrisy, but here we are. Detransitioners, popular videos. Let's see. I don't know. I just feel like the Dylan Mulvaney is such like low-hanging fruit.
You hear a lot of people talk about keeping up with the...
Marcus isn't so close. DG says Marcus is so close. I don't know where to go. It's so close, saying all the right things. If only she could step in reality. She's not close. You don't understand. It's like once the gender critical voices were permitted to be heard, They're just, all they're doing is they realize like which gender critical, talking points were getting all the attention, and they just took on gender critical talking points, and then they're just like spewing them because they work against other people. But like, she doesn't get it. She doesn't get it. There's nothing I see about this woman that sounds like she understands anything. You're close to what?
People know to call me.
I'm sorry, but and I don't mean to pick on you, but it's like I see that a lot in my comments. Like, oh, Buck is just so close to getting it. None of them are close to getting it, because the thing is, even the so-called like delusional trans people know that they're lying. Don't think that any of these people truly think that like anything they're saying is real. This is all like manipulative strategies so that they can get what they want and act how they want in the world and manipulate other people. That's why the trans thing is it's so different from like, the gay civil rights movement and like, homosexuals, because homosexuals just want to like do what they want and be left alone, right? I want to just fucking marry who I want to fucking marry, and like, you leave me alone. It's other people who are entering their world to try to dictate to them how they should live. Whereas trans people, it's the opposite. It's them going out to the world and dictating to other people what they should think and how they should be and how they should treat them. It requires participation from other people. To be gay, to be a homosexual does not require participation from anybody else except for that person's sexual and romantic partners, period. It really doesn't require anybody to do anything, right? But to be trans, it requires not only participation from everyone around them, but it requires that everybody knows, and it requires a literal reordering of society. Changes in everything, right? It is like the most opposite, where it's like the whole problem with the reason why we had to have a whole homosexual civil rights movement is to make other people leave them alone. It was like people were coming them to fucking bother them about what they were doing. Whereas it's the opposite. The whole trans queer thing, it's like them bothering everybody else and imposing themselves on everybody else and forcing everybody else to somehow, capitulate to them, right? Whereas, it was like homophobic people trying to force gay people to capitulate to what homophobes wanted, or straight people wanted, or Christians, or whatever the fuck, right? It's literally like an opposite thing. So it's like, no, they all know it's all just about like manipulating other people, and then none of them actually think that. Come on, bro, that none of them actually think that. That's why they call themselves trans men, trans woman. They know that they're not actually a woman or a man. It's the whole point.
Y'all, the gender is having tattoos all over your torso and then wearing a suit without the bottom shirt so you can show off those tattoos. I do not have any tattoos on my torso yet because I have other things on my torso that I am planning to get rid of. I just don't know when. I'm really upset that I can't be some hot dude with tattoos all over my torso. Maybe in a few years.
You shouldn't transition in order to be more attractive. You shouldn't transition if you think that you cannot be attractive as your biological sex. I think you need...
That's literally all you talk about, how it's so... The reason why you transition is so that other people will perceive you the way you want them to perceive you. But now you're saying that other people shouldn't do that? Huh?
Therapy, not testosterone. I think you need high-quality, non-ideological therapy and not top surgery.
So do you.
Some transition due to them not accepting themselves as who they really are. We see lesbians transitioning to be men. We see gay men transitioning to be women.
Oh, but your transition had nothing to do with you not accepting yourself as you really are, which is a woman, right? Yours is somehow special.
Because they cannot accept themselves as homosexuals. If you are a transsexual, a person
you cannot accept yourself as a heterosexual woman. You need to be so super special. But none of it makes sense.
Gender dysphoria. It doesn't matter how much you try to love yourself and accept yourself. It doesn't matter that you know that you can be a feminine man or a masculine woman. You have a mental disorder.
So
you cannot help dealing with a mental disorder. Period. But I see so many young people today, especially on TikTok, where I'm like, if you got therapy, you would learn how to be your true self without changing
I thought
your
once I had
body,
hit all those
without
points-
transitioning to the
Without,
opposite sex.
so would
And don't you think that it makes sense
So would
how to be your
you.
true self without changing your body, without transitioning to the opposite sex? And don't you think that it makes sense that a transsexual person like myself would say, try not to transition and try to get out of this whole trans universe? I know what it's like, and I do not wish this upon anyone.
No. It's because you are tired. You're mad that it's not special to be trans anymore, right? First it was special to be gay. Then that wasn't special anymore. Then it was trans was like the real special unicorn thing. And you just are mad that the market is oversaturated. No. You know good and goddamn well. Like, hold on for 1 second. I need I'm trying to tell this to help you. Yeah, okay, we bet. Oh my God, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know what anyone finds likable. Like, I feel like Blair White would probably be fun to like go to the bar with, like what's his Buck Angel seems charismatic. That would be at least fun to be in her like company, maybe, even if she's a little bit like histrionic and annoying. But I don't find anything likable about this woman. I don't see, and I'm not saying that there is not. I personally, this is not my cup of tea. I think some of them are likable. I say to this day, I think Laura Hobbs is funny as shit. You know what I mean? Like, I would probably fucking like to hang out with him and just laugh at him because he's hilarious. But it's like, I don't see anything. This person she just seems so like jealous and like angry and frustrated, and it's just kind of like me.
It makes me sad that some people are choosing this lifestyle, that some people are identifying as trans, like pretending to be trans.
I wish there was something I could do to like let people know to call me a man. Except I can't. I know what I should do. I should wear a pronoun pin. I have one of those. I get misgendered more when I wear pronoun pin.
I wonder why that is. It could be that they didn't see your pronoun pin because people don't really look for it. Or it could be that strangers are extremely tired of people like you.
So...
Didn't you just give us a whole speech about how people should respect your pronouns? Like, no, this is the one I want you guys to watch, really, because my son's about to get home, so I got to get off in a minute. This one you guys need to, I need you guys to listen to. The hypocrisy in this is, like, stunning. Damn it, where is it? Hold on, real quick. Ovaries. Okay, here we go. This one is really like just so frustrating.
Find universal about all people who don't like trans people is that they are inherently horrible people. The video that this comment was on was the one where I'm literally writhing in agony during my endometriosis and polycystic ovary pain that I get during my period. I am a trans.
So this is like a trans identifying female who's like complaining that responding to a comment on our TikTok where someone said, but I thought boys didn't have ovaries. And then she's saying how like mean and transphobic that is. And then Marcus swoops in to like shut her down with some like hypocrisy. Let's hear what she has to say.
Which means I was born with a uterus. Otherwise I wouldn't be trans. And yet, despite all that, they still...
Mandy, so Mandy says Marcus just doesn't want the messy trans to make them all look bad and potentially pique the general public. And that like really, it's like everything else I say is superfluous to that one point, right? It's like me, these long streams are just me beating that point, over the head like a dead horse. Because that's the main thing. That's all that this is a big PR cleanup. And it's them basically saying, we don't want any of the negative attention. Here, I can show you some other more embarrassing trans people. Let's go make fun of them. And then you'll think that I'm cool and I can be the pet trans person that you'll let me pass because I'll join in with you guys and we'll clown these ones. And how dumb. They're delusional and mentally ill, right, guys? Like, please, God, let me stay and let me be like, one of the cool, and then after it got so cringy to be pro-trans, and then it was like, but they were already so locked in. It was like, no, this is all big PR cleanup. That's all that the true trans is. And it's to protect trans identity so that when people say that, oh, all trans people are annoying, you can always have someone come and say, no, well, you should then check out Blair White. Blair White's real based. There are some good trans people. The other ones are real annoying. I agree. But no, there's a few based ones. Check out Blair and Marcus Dib. Marcus Dib is real based. No, she's not. No, the fuck she's not.
The time to come in and say things like this. There's no humanity.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
No
and Paulo Nuada says damage control. And they even call their streams damage control. That's what Brad Palumbo is such a dork. Brad Palumbo and Arielle Scarcella. Arielle Scarcella is was cool. She's somebody I probably get along with on a personal level. She was cool to me when she had her own thing. But they call it damage control because that's what this is. It's not actually about safeguarding children and protecting women in law and society.
No heart. And this is something that is universally found across all people who say things like this. And I know I would much rather be the person that I am than a person like that.
That was very dramatic. Just because someone is saying to you that boys cannot have ovaries doesn't mean that they don't care about your physical health. But
Candace Owens is such a mixed bag for me. I listen to her sometimes, and one of the earliest speeches that she had given, really early in her career, I think is still one of the greatest speeches that I've heard in the past 10 years or whatever. But she also she always dunks on Taylor Swift and gets so mad about Taylor Swift for reasons that I think are so dumb. And it's Taylor Swift is so successful and honestly is really not a terrible role model for, she's just mad that Taylor Swift isn't married and hasn't settled down and had children the way that Candace has. And I think that Candace struggles a lot with her type A personality of wanting to be successful and accomplishing a lot and so that she doesn't just seem like this loser who's dependent but then also wants to be a traditional housewife, but you're not a traditional stay-at-home mom. You're a working mother. I mean, literally, you just had a baby, you ran quick right back to work. I didn't do that. And that's fine, but then she dunks on women who don't want to do that, and it's always talking about how immature. She always talks about Taylor Swift, how immature Taylor Swift is. My girls listen to Taylor Swift. I listen to a lot of Taylor Swift's music because of my girls. And trust me, I have a very keen ear for messages that sound like they're nice, but that are actually toxic to children. But Taylor Swift's whole thing is if people are being mean to you, stay upbeat, stay upbeat and believe in yourself and just dance if you're angry or you're hurt, dance your pain away. It's real benign. Trust me, and I'm not saying I hear a lot of these pop culture songs that sound like they're benign but have Really toxic messages. But Taylor Swift is nearly not that bad, and she's a successful woman, and it's she doesn't oversell her sexuality. And then Candace Owens can have these takes that are really dumb, and overly trying too hard to be edgy. And sometimes Candace sounds bitter. She gives off bitter sometimes and angry. And I think she just needs to take a break. And I've been there before, and it's a really difficult place for women who get put in, where you're trying to be really successful at what you're doing, and you also want to basically be a full-time mom. And that can actually really make you burn out, crash out. And women end up in really bad situations and hurt themselves because they're trying too hard to be successful in their work and to be a stay-at-home mom in the early years. And when your children are babies, it's like, if you want to be a mom, you should just commit to it. And it's like, take a few years and just focus on being a mom. You get to come back. It's not like you're young. You know what I mean? And healthcare has evolved a lot. Like, you can take a break and come back, you know? You can't, but what you can't do is give 100% to two very demanding things at the exact same time. You know, my children are a little bit older now, and now I have the time to come back and to like focus on other things. But sometimes she's just like, and then sometimes it's like where she goes too hard, where she's too anti-black just for the sake of being, you know, I'm totally against a lot of like the BLM shit. And I also think that like the welfare state has been one of the worst things to ever happen to the black, you know, community. I think there's a lot of issues with black culture that like I think that are self-harming and stuff like that. But then she kind of like goes too hard in. I think it's like pandering a little bit to these white Republicans. I don't know. Sometimes she has really dumb takes, really dumb takes. And then she also gets so angry when she hears about like women who like chose not to have children who are like 30. And she's like, they're just selfish. And I'm like, you sound really stressed out. Like, maybe you should just go home and like, you know what I mean? It's like she's lashing out about something. Sometimes she's a fucking dumb and weird, and sometimes she's brilliant. She's a mixed bag.
Already know this, don't you? You know as much as we do that stating facts is not about disrespecting you as a human being, disrespecting what you go through physically. The way that you can actually disrespect your medical issues is to claim that boys can have ovaries too. What you physically go through is something that only women can go through, because only women can have ovaries. To claim that men can experience polycystic ovary pain is not only stupid and not...
So Marcus is sitting here dunking on this other trans-identifying female who's saying that some men experience polycystic ovarian pain. And he's like, that's so dumb. But you call yourself a man. You say you're a man with a vagina. It's the same thing with Buck. What are you talking about? So how can you justify calling yourself a man? A gay man at that. Make it make sense. Let's listen to this again. Make it make sense.
You go through physically. The way that you can actually disrespect your medical issues is to claim that boys can have ovaries too. What you physically go through is something that only...
No, and that's the thing. Yeah, Katie Bunny, that's the thing. Candace Owens is I think on the right track with a lot of things. And then I think she kind of like, she also gets sucked into some of the like red pill stuff that I don't think is helpful. Or like the super trad wife stuff that it's like kind of like she's like being a hypocrite because she's really not a trad wife. She's really not actually really, she is in some of her own ways a modern woman that she sits there and like rags on. And also she doesn't understand that economic liberation for women is actually critical for protecting women against protecting women from domestic violence. Like, I hate just people like women who will always take the side of being like against women, you know, against the modern woman. And it's like, you know, that's a whole other conversation. We could even do like a Candace Owens stream if you guys want. No, listen, Candace Owens, though, I think has some really empowering points that she does make. For example, like, God, it's like, I don't, you know, I feel like I'm so annoying sound bites me. Like the whole, like, you know, like taking on like a lot of the Thomas Sowell, you know, perspectives on like the economic liberation of Black Americans and things like that I actually think are helpful. But then like sometimes I do think she just panders, like I said, to like white conservatives. You know, I think she's right about certain things about the Black community, but then tries too hard to like dunk on them on certain things that it's not actually helpful anymore. I don't know. That's a whole other conversation. We can do a Candace Owens stream at some point because I actually do I have a very like mixed opinion of her, and I like some of her stuff a lot, and I really dislike some of her stuff a lot too.
Can go through because only women can have ovaries. To claim that men can experience polycystic ovary pain is not only stupid.
I get mad at Candace Owens and a lot of these other you know, commentators because the grifter, like they try to take on the trans topic and they just steal a bunch of talking points from women who have actually done the work to study and analyze the trans topic, and of course never give credit, never shout out like women where they're stealing these takes from. They'll just, kind of like run the mill of all of these sort of like takes. And it's like when they're an expert on too many different things, you know what I mean? And then they're not really an expert on anything. She should have just focused on like the BLM stuff,
It's simply disrespectful to all females. I hate to be the one to tell you, but boys still can go through because only women can have ovaries. To claim that men can experience polycystic ovary pain.
But only women have vaginas, Marcus, and don't you have a vagina? How does it, I'm really, really trying to follow.
It's not only stupid and not factual, it's simply disrespectful to all females. I hate to be the one to tell you, but boys still don't have ovaries just because you're in agony and your personal experience with gender doesn't change biology. I don't understand why you think it's transphobic to claim that boys do not have ovaries when you said it yourself. The reason why you think you're trans is because you're born with a uterus, and of course ovaries too. And that's what's so ridiculous about trans activists. They often agree with us non-woke people, but when we say it, it's bad, it's hateful, transphobic, and ignorant. Something that's also ironic is how she's claiming that this certain statement is disrespecting an entire group of people. I think that sounds very familiar. You're disrespecting all women when you say that men can have periods too. Men can have ovaries and have babies too. You're not just a person who was born with a uterus. You're a woman. I found this on TikTok and it's kind of funny. Fun fact, men can get pregnant and can also get periods. Abortion bans can also affect men. Don't agree? Argue with the wall. Again, the irony is just so... Who's really talking to the wall? Trans women are women. Men can get pregnant. What I like about this statement is she's not being hypocritical. The same activists who claim that...
All right, yeah, sorry. I had to read what you guys were talking about, slagging off individuals. I hate people who do this. Rebecca 23 says, I'm not policing. I'm against kids transitioning and males in our spaces, but I'm not into slagging off individuals. It doesn't help our purpose. How in the fuck is me pointing out the clear ideological, logical inconsistencies of this? You're mad at me for pointing out about Marcus's hypocrisy when Marcus's entire channel is about her dunking on other people that she finds on TikTok. Okay, and she just picks random people. At least, Marcus puts herself out there and is having, political commentary. I am well within my right to respond to it because it's having an impact on this movement. They are speaking out of both sides of their mouth, and it will impact how we move forward strategically as gender criticals to actually deal with this issue. If it upsets you, Rebecca, then why don't you hang back and stretch? I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on you, but I'm really just annoyed by that stuff because this stuff is just be nice. Just be nice is the same stuff that we are told time and time again from trans privilege activists to keep us quiet and complacent. No, just being nice has turned into the mutilation of the bodies of children. Just being nice has turned into women, girls, top collegiate athletes being sexually violated in their dressing rooms as they go perform the sport that they train their entire lives to play, and having opportunities stolen from them. The last thing that anybody needs to do is just be nice. Okay, I am responding to criticisms and arguments that this woman is making. And this is what the problem is. And I'm sorry, but you sound like one of these true trans people where it's all good to dunk on and make fun of the most mentally ill, the most critically mentally ill people in the so-called trans community, but then you get your feelings hurt if we call out people whose whole grift is dunking on other people. Make that make sense, Rebecca 23. Make that make sense. Why don't you go cry to Marcus about why every single video she does is her putting some, new random person on blast? At least I'm staying consistent and I'm going after people who profit handsomely off of making fun of other people. But you don't want me to speak up too much, right? You want us to just kind of like follow and don't make too much of a ruckus. Find the middle ground. Let's compromise. Let's find a middle ground. There is no middle ground. Finding a middle ground. You don't understand. This middle ground that you guys refer to is actually what would have been considered super far left like 20 years ago. But they strategically moved the left so far out into outer space and then picked some other point and then claim that that was the middle. That's not the middle. You don't get to stretch everything out and then pretend like the middle is over here. No. This is completely, it is far left ludicrous nonsense. And it is dangerous. And if you think that we can compromise with gender ideology, then you have lost the plot. You have lost the plot. And the problem is you don't recognize what got us here in the first place. And you need to go back and really analyze how we even got here. Because you're following the same exact path back to what got us here in the first place. Just be nice. Some people really are trans. We need to make certain allocations. We need to let some people come in. No, absolutely. I'm not digging into Marcus's like private life. And I'm not going and like finding out things about her that she's not openly posting on her YouTube channel that is now fair critique. I'm not like digging up personal facts to embarrass her or to, force her to like confront something that she wasn't comfortable with. No, I'm responding to stuff that she has publicly on her channel. If that hurts your feelings, then maybe you don't really understand why we're here in the first place or what we're actually fighting for.
And can get pregnant also claim that men should stay out of the abortion debate. So even though this young girl is obviously wrong, I'm gonna give her a little bit credit for not being hypocritical.
This day like National Transphobia Day, trans men are men, and some trans men have periods. Therefore, you do not have to be a woman in order to have a uterus, which means you do not have to be a woman to have a period.
Let me ask you this. If trans men are men, period, no pun intended, and trans women are women, what does your tattoo mean then? I didn't know that women had their own flag. Interesting. Trans men are trans men, trans women are trans women. So you're wrong. But what a surprise. I'm gonna steal this argument from my friend Arielle Scarcella. If trans women are women, can women be trans women? If trans men are men, why do they need gender-affirming care? Why do they need to transition? Are they gonna transition from being a man to also being a man? Make it make sense.
I don't know how else to explain this to you. It's pretty clear. I'll say it once, and I'll say it multiple times. Google's free. Completely free. Unless you're out of minutes or something. Go to a Starbucks, log into the free Wi-Fi. Google's free.
Do you know what's also easy and free? Take off your pants and look down. If I do it, I see a vagina, which I have because I'm a woman, biologically speaking. When you do it, you'll see a penis because you're a man, biologically speaking.
So how does this make you just said that, men don't have periods, but you're saying I'm a man who has a vagina, and then you're saying how, I'm told. I mean, I don't need to explain it. You guys can see. This is insane. It's so dumb.
I think that's even faster than to search on Google. What is a woman? She will probably answer with anyone who identifies as a woman. Identify as what? Real transsexuals, of course, know what a man and a woman is.
Yeah, so what are you identifying as, Marcus? What is it? What makes you feel like a man? I'm all ears. I'm all ears.
Know it because we have gender dysphoria. If the definitions of what it means to be a man and a woman doesn't mean anything, how can trans people feel dysphoric? But of course trans activists wouldn't know because they don't deal with gender dysphoria.
Wait, there was one more I wanted to show. My girls are about to come in. I'm like so late. Hold on.
I thought once I had hit all those points that I wouldn't even really.
I don't like that guy. He's annoying. Hold on. There's one before my girls are gonna walk in like 2 minutes here. Let me see if I can get it. If I like randomly log off, it's because they came in. I'm not a sir. Hold on. Do I pass as a guy? This one. Do I? Again, it's all about. It's like all of the elite trans who claim that they pass, and the other ones don't.
I miss what testosterone did for me. I want to be on a tiny amount to where I still get my period.
If I dress remotely cool, people say, check out that girl, 'cause I only pass as a guy when I dress like
So your dysphoria will ruin your outfits, but it doesn't stop you from exposing your chest and put it online. You're not comfortable in certain outfits because of dysphoria.
I appreciate that, DG. And if it makes anyone feel better, I almost like instantly forget who I'm yelling at. Like I will literally, because I just see the words on the screen. So please, it's so not personal. I'll respond to like literally anybody. And one of the things that I like really appreciate and like the most is when I check the shit out of somebody or like go after whatever, and like they still come onto the streams, and like, as soon as I confront stuff, I'm like over it. And I'm like that in my real life. I'm very confrontational, but I'm also very quick to get over things. I'm like very quick to like move on, and it's not personal. It's just this stuff has to be dealt with head on, no matter like, who, whatever. And it's just, it's like, it's gone too far, and it really, really, the stuff has to be dealt with, and in strong terms, it has to be dealt with. We tried being moderate, we tried making special allocations, and it had very bad consequences. And so now we do have to just draw a very hard line.
But you can do this, highlighting that you have breast and put it online. How can over 100,000 people like this video, like this TikTok? I don't.
Kai Decadence, yes, please. People would love to hear from you. I've heard that many times. People would love to hear from you, and so would I. So definitely email me.
Understand. This girl clearly needs help, and going through a medical gender transition is not gonna help her. The reason why I say this is because this is clearly a case of a young girl desperately wanting attention from strangers online. And
you base this off what? Like a 15-second clip? Now you're like making these like brash diagnoses about how they're not truly trans, and you're based on what? Based on what? How do you know she's any different from you? Now she's going to go on and say how using low dose testosterone is somehow more dangerous than max dosing yourself the way that Marcus does. And Marcus is clearly not very bright and does not know a whole lot about anatomy and physiology, and she's going to expose that right now.
Not why you should get top surgery. That's not why you should go through the medical transition. You should do it for yourself, to make yourself feel better. Why are people posting this online? People constantly ask me, what does it feel like to deal with gender dysphoria? It's almost impossible to describe. When I did not pass, when I was not on hormones, I didn't get any surgeries.
It's almost impossible to describe because you don't know. Because gender dysphoria is a word that doesn't mean anything. It just means you were frustrated and unhappy, and you were looking for a magic bullet to fix all your problems. You were looking for the ultimate placebo, and you latched onto this. The same way that anorexics latch onto the idea that if they're just skinny enough, then they can finally be happy and live the life that they want, right?
And I sounded like a girl. When people who knew me back then called me she by accident, of course, I felt really dysphoric. I felt like I was naked. I felt like people can see right through me. Like, oh, this is all an act. You're really a girl, and it's so obvious. And me thinking of that, I felt embarrassed. This is only one way of describing the feeling of dysphoria, but let's just go with that. Why would...
Yeah, Mandy knows. I feel like I've checked Mandy like a... I've checked Mandy like at least a couple of times, but then like other times it's all good. It's like really, it's all good. I don't take anything personally because it's like I've like actually had like real issues in my life. So like none of this is, you know what I mean? And we're having like a vociferous, debate. So it's all good. You know what I mean? It's not like we're all trying to work through a very complex thing and we're trying to do it together. And sometimes we're going to disagree and it's really all good.
Put yourself on the internet if you're feeling like this. Embarrassed, depressed, anxious, stressed out. When you're feeling the most dysphoric, you don't want anyone to see you. You want to be alone. So that's why I'm saying that she's probably not a transsexual. And the other thing is, the way that she desperately wants to look like trans creators on the internet is also worrying to me. It kind of describes perfectly this whole concept of social contagion. That this is not about dealing with the mental disorder gender dysphoria, but it's more like, why can't I be like them? Because they're cool and they have a lot of followers and they get affirmed every single day. That's the issue.
Kind of like your weird obsession with Buck Angel and Blair White and how giddy you get when people compare you to them and act like you're part of their crew. Like she's probably like wetting her pants that I like associate her with all them. Because it's like you get these weird Klingons who become like super fans and want to actually become part of the crew. Seems like real obsessed with being like sitting at the table with Blair White and all them. And, they're finally starting to let her.
The issue is to fake dealing with a mental disorder and other people praising it.
I only pass as a guy when I dress like I only pass as a guy when I dress like shit. If I dress remotely cool, people say, check out that girl, 'cause I only pass as a guy when I dress like
Who's gonna tell her that she doesn't pass as a guy no matter what?
Who's gonna tell Marcus? Hey, Marcia, you don't pass either, sweet pea. You don't pass either. You look like an annoying queer theory tomboy girl who like comes and always is like, well, actually, and talks like she knows everything about everything. Typical 24-year-old.
Testosterone did for me psychologically and mentally. I haven't been on it for probably 6 weeks. February 1st, my T levels were 11, which is super low for even a female-bodied person. But in October, they were 500, which is in the cis male range. I want to be on a tiny amount to where I still get my period. Sorry, I can't multitask.
Why? If a woman wants to be on testosterone, it's because she wants to live her life as a man. Due to gender dysphoria, that woman doesn't want to be perceived as a woman in society. But not only that, having your period as a gender dysphoric biological female is the absolute worst thing ever.
So this woman is saying how she wants to take a low enough dose of testosterone so as not to cause amenorrhea. And amenorrhea is basically like cessation of your menses, And does probably because this woman actually probably has a little better understanding of female anatomy and physiology than you do, Marcus, and understands that periods have a necessary function, right? I try to take enough estrogen so that I will still have, some bleeding, because bleeding helps. It does a lot. It helps like cause blood flow and cleans your uterus and kind of like rejuvenates it, by having like, blood and shedding lining and stuff like that. And there's a reason why Buck Angel went septic. Because she was taking such astronomically high. I feel like Buck Angel must have been overdosing on testosterone, probably taking more than she was supposed to. But this woman probably actually understands that, no, this is actually safe. So Marcus is going to wrongly tell us that this woman is, because she's taking a lower dose of testosterone. Again, women produce testosterone. Every woman actually has higher levels of testosterone than they have estrogen naturally, which is interesting. And is the fact a lot of people don't know. So, there's absolutely nothing dangerous about taking less testosterone than taking like a mega dose the way you take, Marcus. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yay. So hopefully I'll still have my period and I'll feel a little bit better mentally. Gender's such a journey. You just gotta listen to your body and listen to your own wants and needs. You'll figure it out.
My kids are here. Fuck.
You'll figure it out? What do you mean by that? Are you inspiring other people to do the same as you? Because that's mental. You're filming you injecting yourself with a needle saying, well, you'll figure it out when you do the same. How's that allowed on TikTok but my videos get deleted? I love when she said, oh, just listen to your body. Girl, you are a female putting testosterone in your body. How is your body liking that? And you're not even putting a lot of testosterone in it, so your body must be so confused. I think the reason why she claims to feel a little bit better mentally when being on testosterone is because apparently testosterone contains some form of antidepressants, which I find really fascinating. But I think it's super dangerous to promote this. You are not a doctor. You're not only going against your biology, so did I, but you're not doing it the right way. At least I'm doing it the right way. I'm going all in, honey.
You're doing the
And
dangerous
you're not,
way.
so
I gotta go.
I'm
My
not
kids are
saying
here.
that I know I'm going to be perfectly healthy,